But the next chief executive just put this patient and do a good job as possible.
I won't take up too much of your time. I know it's a budget meeting this evening, but I thought most of you know me by now. My name's Ash. I normally work with St David's Church. This month I'm on a placement with Exeter Network Church. And just last week I was in St Stephen's, just across the road, with about 200 young people from Exeter University, really rocking out to some contemporary Christian music, which was really life-giving and encouraging. But I wondered if we could start just by taking a moment of silence. This is our first meeting since Lorna England, of course, was tragically killed in Watford. So let's just pause. Eternal rest grant unto her, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon her. May the soul of the faithful departed through the mercies of Christ rest in peace and rise in glory. Amen. As well as being budget night, it's also pancake day, isn't it? So we're on the cusp of Lent. I don't know if you know the word Lent comes from, and its adjective Lenten comes from Old English, Anglo-Saxon for lengthen, like this meeting will do. But it also refers to the lengthening of the days and the lengthening of the light. So the themes of light and dark in mind, we pray. Jesus, you came from heaven to earth and suffered death upon the cross. Give us grace to see your light, that we may be strengthened to endure the darkness of this present hurting world. Holy God, you know the disorder of our sinful lives. Make well our hearts and mend our wills to imitate your love, light, and goodness. May we reflect your love in word and deed. Amen. Amen. Thank you, friends. With that, I shall depart. Thank you, Reverend.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we do start in the seriousness of our business before us tonight, I would like to ask you to stand because Hilda Sterry, who was one of us and a very good old councillor as well as Alderman. On top of that, we've had, in the recent, as my chaplain had said, the thoughts of the murder of, and the thoughts with their families, and I think we should honour that. But all those also suffering in Syria, Turkey, following the recent earthquakes, our thoughts are also affected. And to continue war in Ukraine, our thoughts are with their people too. So would you be honour these most unfortunate happenings, and just a minute silence, please. You may please sit. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a long evening this evening. And I shall be strict tonight that on any of the speakers, if they do stray, I shall be on you with my little bat, wherever it's gone. Oh, there it is, that one. But we have got a long evening this evening, so I think you ought to bear with me as well, because I've also got to go through the minute, go for a minute, but to to make sure things that this council must be carried through properly. The next item on the agenda is number 2, minutes 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are the agendas for members to note. I remind you that the opportunity for questions, clarifications, is minute on extraordinary meeting later in this evening. Agenda item number 3, starting on page 13, minute 8, 23-24 budget, and agenda 9, number 4. I call item number 4, starting on page 15, which relates to the 23-24 budget and details and recommendations set out in your agenda paper. Councillor Bayer.
I'd like to move the budget for 22-23, Lord Mayor.
Yes, who's the?
I'll second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I call on to the leader to introduce and propose the budget of 23-24 period. And Councillor Wright, you will say that you will be either reserve the right or go further in later. Councillor Wright, please. Sorry, yes, I forgot. Sorry, Diane. I also wish to confirm that there is understanding orders 10-7. The Progressive Group have given the necessary notice of their intentions to move amended budget. I'm glad before we enter into the debate of the budget, we shall debate and vote on, and may I just advise the writer the reply at the end of the debate, and the mover and seconder of the notice of motion shall address only the points raised to be. I'd like Councillor Diana Moore to propose, and then a little bit, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to make amendments to an alternative budget presented by the Progressive Group of Councillors as well.
You do have a seconder, do you, at this point?
Yes. I would like to second. Lord Mayor, I'd like to go with that one like to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will not read out all the amendments, but I'm sure all the councillors have read them. I will, however, set out a short explanation to elaborate a little bit more. First of all, I would like to commend all the staff and council staff who work so hard every year to re-establish services as we continue to progress beyond COVID, we hope. The organisational change programme One Exeter will significantly change how the council works, so it will impact on staff and their roles, the services they provide, and how residents, members and businesses benefit and engage with the council. This year also, communities in our environment will more directly experience the impact of the cuts as a result of the council's budget. So we are presenting our budget and our amendments to enable the council to do more to exit stated priorities without increasing borrowing. We are, to use the expression often used in local authorities, looking to add value. Other aspects of our amendments seek to respond to identified community needs and make further progress on tackling the climate and ecological emergencies. There are just a few points that are worth noting. The income from the Guildhall Shopping Centre can be used for the regeneration of the area. This is in line with terms of the loan. And as the Guildhall car park is attached to the Guildhall Shopping Centre, it is within the area and scope of the purposes. By using the income from the shopping centre in a proposed way, it releases funds that were to be borrowed to repair the multi-story car park and use these funds for other uses. Leader, you have told me on a number of occasions how keen you are to progress the retrofit work across the city. We both want to see this happen. To do this, it is vital to understand the nature and the scale of the task and create a demand, a sound technical and financial basis for any potential company the council then might not decide to set up. I know some of the money has now been earmarked for compulsory purchase costs. We're going to leave that there. We're not suggesting we change that. It's obviously important to you, but there are still funds available. So our request is that we start using them. So we would welcome support for these amendments. And if that support can only be partial, we would accept you taking this motion in part. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to say Malton Bridge on the Quay has been out of use since 2018, and this bridge is part of a strategic route for walking, wheeling and cycling around Exeter, encouraging active travel, which is the stated goal of both this council and Devon County Council. Its loss has a huge impact on those who live around and visit the Quay, as their only option now is to be funneled into a narrow alleyway in order to continue their journey. The Quay is a hugely popular asset in Exeter. Visitors and locals alike enjoy the route along the river, so sending them around the houses and down a narrow alley is not an ideal addition to their visit. Replacing the bridge will restore the ability to stroll along the river, an activity which is free for everyone to enjoy. On multiple occasions, the leader has kindly assured us that Malton Bridge will be replaced, and so its removal from the budget plans will continue to see a large impact on our city. The importance of this route is highlighted by its continued inclusion within the Devon County Council cycle map to this day. The news published on this council's website that a funding bid is underway to replace the bridge could be fantastic news for the whole city. However, this is currently just a funding bid yet to be submitted, and so the outcome remains unknown. As all organisations' budgets become squeezed, it is vital we act soon so that we don't lose contributions of £500,000 from the council's partners. This budget amendment is designed to help the leader honour his commitment and without compromising any of the other projects that he is proposing as part of his budget and without any additional borrowing. Please do support this amendment to allow the council to take action on its commitment to active travel and health of the city.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening. A couple of things. I was really interested to
read the papers that the Progressive Group have put before us. But much of the work that they put into it hinges on the raising of car parking fees across the city. This is something I'd like to talk about a little. In 2017, when I was Deputy Lord Mayor, when I was Lord Mayor in 19 to 21, I spent a significant amount of time listening to the small and medium-sized enterprises, some of which I opened the shops, and at the end there would be a celebration of some description. We may have had a buffet or whatever. And I said to them, if I had some magic dust, what do you think would be the best thing Exeter City Council could do for you guys? And without hesitation, each and every one of them said, please, can you cap the car parking fees, or can you actually not increase them again? And so much of the good work that's been put into this additional paper that we've got in front of us hinges on raising money through car parks. I also like to talk about the ward I represent, St. Loy's Ward. 5 years ago, when I became the councillor at St. Loy's, we were privileged to have 3 buses an hour in and out of town. And they never let us down. Their reliability was superb. Now we're lucky just to get 1 bus full there during the hour. And you can't be surprised if people my age, if you like, living up on Broadfields, which is part of St. Loy's, will jump in a car to come into town. And they're saying to me, when I listen to them on the doorstep, I don't tell them things, I listen to what they've got to say. And they're telling me, it's getting so expensive. Why are you, but it's not me, why are the council putting up charges? Well, I do understand why the ruling group put up charges to actually enhance or they've actually leveled out the zones. They're actually going to improve the security in them, the lighting, and a better experience for people to go and use them. But to actually put up the charges of the 3 sites in town, and I think I made a note of them, one was the Guildhall, Mary Arches Street, I can't remember the other one, here we are, John Lewis Car Park, I think will strangle the life out of the city centre by actually putting these prices up. And then it will take away the livelihood of the small and medium-sized enterprises. And for those reasons, I would actually say that I cannot support this. Just think of the people who live on the outskirts of the city who actually do get in their cars because they can't get a bus. And I think we should be focusing more on working with Devon County Council and Stagecoach. Only this week I heard that St. Peter's High School are going to lose 3 double-decker buses that bring students in on a daily basis. You've got Alfrington and you've got Exwick and there's a 3rd one. Now, how do you won't answer this, but how do you think those students are going to get to school? Their parents will put them in a car and bring them, and that board will become gridlocked. So I'm really worried for the people of the small and medium-sized enterprises, and also the good people who live in St. Loy's Ward, who will actually use their cars to get into town. So I'm not against the bridge being rebuilt, but we heard the leader at the scrutiny meeting some days ago, maybe a week or 2 ago, to say he hadn't chucked it out with the bath water. It was on the back burner, and it's something that he would consider for the future. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Our amendment recognises the decision that has been proposed to prioritise investment in the city's assets based on health and safety priorities, and we do not seek to change that. Our amendment seeks to do is to go the extra step to prioritise community safety through investment in our cars. It is vital we maintain and enhance the space, nature, and also for residents and visitors to enjoy and feel safe. We are very aware of the antisocial behaviour and in fact dangers people experience in our cars. By investing in parking infrastructure, we can build people's confidence that they will be safe in city parks and open spaces and enjoy them. Our proposal also aims to further action in tackling climate and ecological emergencies. By piloting lockable bike hangers and electric bike charging points, we will give people the confidence to switch to electric bikes knowing that they will be secure and will be discharged. If this works well, we could see it rolled out across the city. We welcome the work of the Home Task and Finish Group, which starkly identifies the need for free, open public toilets to ensure that people living in rough do not use desperate measures to avoid using toilets or going into places which add problems of antisocial behaviour in parks and in car parks themselves. Most road toilets are a great central location near to the city car park, whose users would be contributing to their funding. So I'm sure that this will be appreciated by everyone. You will see that capital work of refurbishment, reopening and revenue costs for ongoing maintenance and cleaning are both covered. We hope that you will welcome the money we've identified for planting to restock our park for both people and nature to enjoy.
Is there any other speakers? Yes, just one minute. If there's any other speakers. Right. Thank you.
So, thank you for Councillor Collins for raising your points about car parking, which I think are important to address. We've got different concerns in this year's budget. The grants programme is just £15,000, a reduction from £24,000. The council received a return of 9 million since 2011, 9 years of support community grants. When it was set up, the Exeter grant programme and Exeter fund was initially funded from a new homes bonus, community reserve, and 265,000 a year for 3 years, and a neighbourhood portion of the SIL. And this created an annual fund of £1 million. We saw this covering ward grants, community buildings, small grants, and large grants. This year, no new homes bonus money was expected, but it has been. And that money is supposed to be used in general terms to fund the council. In your first budget season in 2019, you said, and I quote, we launched the Exeter Community Grants Programme with an annual budget of around £1 million, second to none in the South West. 127 community groups were funded and by the council this year with an estimated value of £463,709. Now we are left with practically none. During the COVID lockdown, the community stepped up and organised an amazing response to help support their neighbours, and grant funds were used to support this. Since then, community grants and ward grants have been vital to help re-establish community action, and we get back on your feet. So Councillor Holland mentioned about car parking. We feel our proposal offers very good value for money. It would mean an average city centre car parking fee for a Thursday evening would add 14p. And I'm sure that people would support a few pence on a parking fee, knowing that their money will be directly helping those in need in our city. And it's certainly better value for money than a lottery ticket.
Sorry. Now we come now to the vote. Sorry, Alex. Beg your pardon.
Just to say, might be an absence of discussion from our side. Lord Mayor, I see you set the President hoping to give me, when I sum up with the budget speech, the same latitude you've given the mover of the amendment, who has actually not addressed all of those points later on, but I will be so long as saying that. The Labour Group will not be supporting these amendments. 3 working days is not enough for us to sit down in a sensible, pragmatic way to look at these. It was given on the 18th of March.
We have to know the Constitution and
I'm explaining. Oh.
so
I'm happy for us to go to the vote. They don't want any more information on there. I'll sit down.
We need to go to vote, please, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we are trying to do business here. Now, we have to go and take a vote on the progressive groups, the notice of motion on this. Can you now vote, please, and those for the progressive groups amendment to the text? Is that right?
That's correct. I'll pledge you in favour.
Please, those.
Could you show your hands quite high, please? Thank you. That's seven in favour of all of that.
Those against, please. Can you make sure?
Thank you. That's 26 against all of that.
And is there any abstentions?
No abstentions on there, so that hasn't been.
That is lost. Now we return to the agenda before you by Councillor Bayavik, the leader of the council, and seconded by Councillor White. Councillor Bayavik, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, setting a balanced budget for the year ahead has been extremely challenging, and we have had to make tough choices. As leader of the council, along with my portfolio holders, we need to look at the city as a whole and our priorities. It's worth remembering that we have seen a reduction in central government funding of more than 60 pence in every pound over the last 12 years. Our senior leadership team have been working extremely hard on reviewing our services and how we can make efficiency savings and generate additional income. When the medium-term financial plan, which covers the next 4 years, was presented to the Executive in February of 22, the funding gap identified was 6.6 million. Over the last year, the position has changed due to inflationary pressures, causing higher staff salaries and energy costs together with higher interest rates. As a result, the funding gap identified over the medium-term financial plan has increased, and it is now showing a funding gap of £9.675 million. This amounts to 18% of the council's general fund operating budget. As a direct result of energy price rises, rising interest rates, and the national cost of living crisis, the medium-term financial plan identifies increased funding gaps of 3.095 in 23-24, 2.236 in 24-25, 2.45 in 25-26, and 1.8 million in 26-27. That's the backdrop, Lord Mayor, against which we have to set a balanced budget for the financial year. In making the necessary reductions to our budget, we have done everything possible to minimise the impact on residents. While we continue to do our best for Exeter and to ensure we remain a successful city, it is right that everyone recognises the funding predicament we face and measures we are taking to deal with it. It's a shame that we have had to reduce our capital budget for the year ahead for the reasons I have outlined. I have to look at the priorities across the city, but we continue to listen to our residents and find ways to respond positively where we can. A replacement Malison Bridge at Exeter Quay is not in the capital budget programme because we simply do not have the funds. But we've always said that we will continue to explore ways to deliver it, and I am delighted that we are now preparing a joint bid with the Devon County Council to secure funding through the Department of Transport Active Travel Programme. If successful, this will lead to a replacement bridge for cyclists and pedestrians. And I very much welcome the bid going forward. Give us a little bit of credit for doing that, if nothing else. Similarly, we need to act to secure the funding of the hugely popular splash park in St Thomas and the paddling pools in Exeter, because we know how important these facilities are to the residents and families across the city. That's why we propose an additional £100,000 should be added to the budget so that we continue to provide these facilities which mean so much to so many. Before I move on to the details of the budget itself, Lord Mayor, I want to spend a few minutes highlighting some of the successes over the 12 months, which demonstrate we get it right in the city gets it right. I'm pleased to report that our food waste collection rollout is progressing well. From July 2022, we started the rollout in Alvington and Beacon Heath, and last October in Pinhole in November. In January, we rolled out the service to parts of St Lloyd's. The next rollout will be in Exeter and St Thomas in the middle of February to another 2,179 properties. And then further 1,326 properties in the Pinhole, Stokehill and Pennsylvania area, together with Heaventree and Posel areas at the beginning of March to May. It will take the number of homes receiving food waste collections in the city to more than 20,000. This service has proved extremely popular, and residents will significantly increase our recycling rate. And it is great to report that we are making good progress in collecting the food waste across the city, demonstrating the trial process was the correct thing to do and pragmatic way of going forward. Ensuring that we are net zero carbon by 2030 continues to be a key priority. We have established a team to deliver net carbon zero within the City Council and an action plan produced to reduce our carbon emissions. And over the last year, the Council has started operating the first 3 electric refuse collection trucks in Exeter, completed the solar array and battery storage facility at Marsh Farm, which links directly to the MRF at Exeter Road and will be used to power our fleet of electric vehicles with power we have generated ourselves. We've completed the solar array on the roof at the Riverside Leisure Centre and the installation of batteries on existing solar arrays. We've planted trees throughout the city, including 591 whips in the new woodland project in New Haven Fields. We've continued with our sustainable wildflower planting programme, which has proved so popular to residents. Protecting and enhancing our green space has remained a priority. I am pleased that our achievements led to a national recognition in November of last year, when an independent study by the University of Sheffield looked at 68 cities in the UK, scoring them accordingly to greenness, tree canopy cover, and the percentage of green space. Exeter came out on top. I'm pleased to report that the footfall has returned strongly in the city centre following the pandemic, with the recent Christmas period being the busiest in 4 years. In 2022, saw an annual footfall increase of 22.9% to 24.3 million. That figure is almost 20% higher than the pre-pandemic 2019 figure. I don't know who you're talking to, Councillor Holland, but it's not the right people. It shows that the hard work we have put to protect and enhance the city centre over the last decade has proved dividends. We've upgraded the CCTV room with new and better quality cameras as part of our commitment to ensuring Exeter is a safe city for all. Over the last 12 months, our in-house Exeter leisure service has gone from strength to strength. St Simon's Point opened at the end of April last year and has proved a massive success. Some of you should really go and take a look at it. I do not have time now to list all of the regional and national awards it has won since opening. The list is very long and continuing to grow all the time. The leisure centre is hugely popular with residents, and we are extremely proud of it. All of our leisure facilities continue to be well used and highly valued by residents, and it is great to see the membership figures increasing. We will continue to ensure there is a significant investment in our leisure facilities and portfolio going forward. The BBC, that left-wing organisation, recently reported that more than 660 public pools across the UK over the last 3 years have closed, and there are fears that many more will follow. I'm very proud of the fact that we have bucked that trend here in Exeter by having the vision and determination to deliver a brand new swimming pool and leisure centre, which has proved so popular to residents. We continue to work hard to make Exeter a healthy and active city for all our residents. The launch of the new Live and Move strategy will help more people lead active lifestyles through our partnership programme with Sport England to 2025. Our playing pitch strategy has been agreed, and there is a commitment from partners to invest in improving Exeter's playing fields. Our inspirational inclusive communities programme is supporting hundreds of people from our culturally diverse communities that take part in activities including Zumba, fitness, badminton, cricket and walking. Later this year, our designs for a new community wellbeing hub in Wallingford will be submitted to the planning following widespread consultation with that community. Even in these challenging times, Lord Mayor, I am proud of the fact that we've been able to maintain support for our communities in Exeter. We have spent £850,000 directly supporting 112 groups to deliver community activities across the city. This includes almost 30,000 on community groups to run activities in their ward, £75,000 supporting community buildings, £50,000 on small grants for projects that run across the city, £60,000 on capital support for community buildings, £10,000 to support community groups in providing warm spaces and facilitating free use of community facilities to anyone in need of them over the coldest parts of the winter. We have contributed £200,000 in the last 12 months to ensure that the Citizens Advice Centre in Exeter can continue to support our residents during the cost of living crisis. Exeter community initiatives have received £180,000 in the last 12 months to be able to provide voluntary sector support and advice. Community group organisation will be further boosted with the launch of the Exeter Community Lottery later this year. I'm very proud of the way that Exeter has responded over the last year to the refugee crisis caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The city has welcomed those forced to escape the crisis with open arms, and support shown to all our guests in the city has been fantastic. have supported the Devon Ukrainian Association to continue their fantastic work in supporting Ukrainian guests through the Conversation Cafe, supported by Home Office funding. Under the Homes for Ukraine scheme, we have distributed over £43,000 in guest payments to Ukrainian refugees since the scheme started, helping 230 individuals. Those who are there are given to people who come under the Homes for Ukraine, not the families of Ukrainians who got nothing from this nothing. So far we have made 133 payments to hosts, totaling £268,650, including £54,100 in discretionary payments, which top up the £350 host payment from the government to £500. We have also given £39,492 towards rent, deposits and moving costs, which has helped 13 Ukrainian households to move into their own private rented accommodation. I'm very proud of the work we've done. And we continue to help residents through the cost of living crisis here in Exeter. Our team has distributed payments from the various household support schemes to 7,489 households, with a total value of £715,673. We've distributed the council tax £150 emergency rebate, both the mandatory and discretionary schemes, to 45,557 households, with a total value of £6,803,310. Our officers have worked incredibly hard to get these payments out to the people who need them most. And I'm very proud of the work they've done and all the officers have done in this council. So, Lord Mayor, providing quality housing remains one of our key strategic priorities. Last October, we saw the official opening of the initial lettings of the council's extra care housing scheme, Edwards Court. Edwards Court is the new extra care housing scheme developed in partnership with Devon County Council, and it's the first extra care scheme in the city. The scheme provides 53 flats for affordable rent and has already proven a big success. It was recently praised by the NHS for helping to take pressure off the hospitals and beds in the city. Edwards Court is the first country's passive house care facility, another fact that we are extremely proud of. Over the last year, we've seen commitment on site of 21 new passive flats at Hamlin Gardens, site clearance and tendering process completed for the commencement of 92 flats at the Gardens Wigton at Vaughan Road. The first 35 has gone through the Exeter and we'll be dealing with later on. We have continued to deliver the delivery of the council housing retrofit programme. 420 properties have been completed to date, with some £1.6 million of government grant utilised as part of that funding. This scheme is helping residents facing spiralling fuel costs by lowering energy use and also lowering our carbon footprint at the same time. A bid for social housing decarbonisation funding was submitted in November, and the results will be known in March. At the end of last year, we held a successful public consultation on the draft Exeter plan, which highlights how the city will grow in a sustainable way over the next few decades. We held roadshow events in every ward in the city, and officers engaged directly with more than 1,000 people at these events. Thousands of people have visited our dedicated consultation website, and our local plan team has begun the process of collating and analysing almost 4,000 responses from residents, businesses and organisations across the city. A further consultation on the final draft plan will take place later this year. Our housing needs team, voluntary sector partners, volunteers continue to work tirelessly to help those who are homeless or at risk of being homeless in Exeter. A 5-year homelessness prevention strategy is being created and it is due to be launched in April. Over the last year, Lord Mayor, we have extended delivery of rough sleeping services following the successful £3 million bid to government. We've successfully obtained funding through the rough sleeping accommodation programme to purchase 25 ex-council one-bed properties for the use as stepping stone homes for people recovering from rough sleeping. We ran a successful trial of 4 new rough sleeping relief pods, enabling over 20 rough sleepers with high needs to come in off the streets. We launched 2 bespoke projects providing emergency accommodation and recovery support for victims of domestic violence and abuse, with more than 30 users in the first 12 months. Over the last year, we have further enhanced our reputation for hosting prestigious events in Exeter, Lord Mayor. The Queen's Commonwealth Games baton relay travelled through Exeter in July, culminating in a visit to St Stephen's Court. The Queen's Jubilee Street Party was also delivered to thousands of residents and visitors last summer and saw the highest footfall of the year in the city. With the sad passing of Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth, Exeter hosted a perfectly executed proclamation, and I would like to give thanks to that team that delivered that for the city. It was a good event. We made sure residents were able to pay their respects publicly by screening the state funeral and allowing people to come together in Northern Head Gardens. We are currently working within Exeter to deliver a celebration to mark the coronation of King Charles III. We even welcomed the Exeter Carnival back to the city centre for the first time in 20 years in partnership with Exeter. And thousands of people lined the streets for that fantastic free event. Supporting Exeter's cultural offer continues to be a key strategic priority for the council. We are proud of our continued support of the RAM, Corn Exchange, and attractions like the underground passages. Over the next 3 years, the council will commit more than 6.78 billion in supporting the 5 national portfolio organisations: Exeter Phoenix, Exeter Northcott Theatre, Exeter UNESCO City of Literature, Libraries Unlimited, and of course, the Royal Albert Memorial Museum. The RAM was recently awarded gold in the ethical, responsible and sustainable tourism category at the Visit Devon Tourism Awards. It has held a number of high-profile and highly regarded exhibitions over the last 12 months on a wide range of diverse subjects, from the transatlantic slave trade, the origins and the history of the Exeter Rugby Club. Lord Mayor, I think it is important to detail the achievements and success of this city, and I would like to thank all our partners in the city with whom we work with to keep our city moving forward and maintaining our success. Just one final thing before I come to the details of the budget itself. I need to thank the outgoing Chief Executive, Kareem, a good mentor for all leaders who's come into his orbit, good advice. Kareem often told me, you do the what, Phil, we do the how. And I always remember those words when we try to get operationally to our fingers involved with too many things. Kareem, we will miss you, but best of luck for your future, and you deserve to spend your time with the family now. Lord Mayor, I now come to the details of the budget. The proposed budget will achieve the requirement to maintain a minimum balance in excess of 3 million. Significant work has been undertaken to deliver substantial reductions and additional income to deliver a balanced budget in the face of unprecedented cost pressures, as I have mentioned. It is important to remember that the Council is legally responsible for setting a balanced budget each year and for taking action when there are adverse movements in a projected financial position during the year. Therefore, if a decision to amend the budget in a way that the Council must just identify how that's being funded. What I will say, in relation to what I would have said earlier on, Lord Mayor, is that I put an offer to the opposition party that I will look at all those issues that has been raised. We need time to look at them. We need to look at the appropriateness, and I'm happy to engage you all because, as I've told you, there's another 2 million defined. Okay? And perhaps you can help me find it, not just spend it. You can help me find it. And if you do support the budget, which I hope you will do, that offer is there for the taking. So I propose the recommendation set out in the papers before you in the terms of approval of both the revenue estimates and the capital programme for the year 23-24, which will result in the setting of a district council tax of £175.13 for a Band D property in Exeter. This is an increase of £5.08 for a Band D property, less than 10p per week. So just a few details on how it will be split. I know you've got the figures there now. The council, City Council, £175. Devon County Council, £1,419.21. The social care addition of £214.92. Devon and Cornwall Police, £261.56. Devon and Somerset Fire, £96.79, making a total for a family of £2,167.61. I've got the word. Except you were looking at me, Dave, I thought that was wrong. Lord Mayor, I shall do the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diana. It is now open to debate. Councillor Wright, are you with this?
I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. The floor is open, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor, yes, Alice. Yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We all know, as the leader has said, that every local authority has to set a balanced budget. Exeter is no exception, and our gratitude and thanks should go to the officers who have worked tirelessly for piecing together such a balanced budget. Due to the work undertaken by the officers, we will be supporting the budget. That does not mean, and I stress, that does not mean that we support the actions of the ruling Labour group that we believe have largely created the current situation. It is the addiction to higher rent. Well, I didn't expect it to read. Come on, those. It is the addiction of the group to high rates of borrowing which leaves the council's debt at £167 million. Of this, £56.8 million will not be repaid until 2062, and that is at an interest rate of 3.48%. £34.6 million will not be repaid until 2069, and £43 million will not be repaid until 2071. So this debt carries on for future generations. It is right that interest rates nationally have gone up, and that has been in order to bring inflation under control. High inflation does mean higher prices, higher costs. The actions of President Putin have increased energy prices exponentially, as set out by the leader. But that has meant an end to the relatively cheap borrowing the council enjoyed under the Public Works Loan Law. It is not clear when inflation will fall back to the Bank of England's target of 2.5%, or when interest rates will start to fall. But in spite of all those factors, when one looks at the figures, the expected long-term borrowing requirement takes total debt up to 254.3 million. So it is still on the rise. Reserves are likely to reduce, as was said, to just over 3 million within the next couple of years or so, and the housing revenue account reserves will be around 4 million. In the stage when we do not know how inflation, how interest rates are going to pan out, whilst it is right that those reserves are legal, we still think that they cause concern. Fortunately, the government has indicated that business rates retention, which is vital in Exeter, will continue for at least another year, as will the new homes bonus. Since 2011, Exeter has received 29.6 million from the new homes bonus, money that we believe could and should have been spent better. However, it's no good looking back and saying that the money could have been spent better. The issue is stark. There is considerable debt. It has to be repaid now and in the future. And in addition, there are the statutory services to be funded. One bit of good news for council tenants was that the government cap rent rises to 7% rather than the CPI plus 1%, which would have enabled an increase in excess of 11%. Council tax has gone up by the maximum 2.99%. Unfortunately, there is a government cap of 3%. Motorists will have to pay to park into the evening. That is bad enough, but the Greens and Lib Dems, as we heard earlier, will have increased those charges as well. It is hoped that evening charges will not put off people coming into the city. There would be real stress on the figures before us tonight if the High Street and the Guildhall Shopping Centre lost more business, leading to the risks of shops and restaurants closing. Let's be clear that it is predicted that a 20% downturn in the council's car park and commercial property income would reduce the income accrued to this council by some £3 million. So how does that affect the people of Exeter in their daily lives? It means that play parks will not be refurbished, let alone upgraded. Street cleansing will be reduced. Ward grants that have benefited so many brand groups, residents associations, PTAs and similar will disappear. The budget does what it has to do. It starts to bring council finances back under control, and it is for that reason that we will be voting for it. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you. Councillor Bizarre, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Well, I welcome the budget. I will certainly be supporting it this evening. I just wanted to draw attention to a couple of things. The curbside food waste collection, which is so important to the residents of our city. A number of members were present at the recent scrutiny committee, the customer focus scrutiny committee that I chair, and we had, I have to say, I think, the best presentation that I have seen at any council meeting about that occasion from Simon Lane, the lead officer, taking charge of that. It clearly set out the plans, the reasons why we are where we are, the reasons why the council took time to get it right, and the way forward ahead, which I think was extremely clear, and members will have had the opportunity to see those slides because they've been shared with people. So I want to thank officers for the work that's been done on that, and also thank Councillor Williams for her lead on this vital and important issue, which contributes greatly to our net zero targets and carbon reduction for us. Very important. It'll make a first-class service. And I do look forward, personally speaking, to roll out to parts of St Leonard's in the coming months, and indeed to the whole city in due course, once the work that needs doing has been completed over the next few months ahead. And I look forward to the next phase of that. All of that, of course, in the context of the 60% loss of government, central government grant that we've heard about. Not to the council's own decision making, but an actual loss of income from the Conservative government. The impact of COVID as well, and also the challenges of the additional budgetary pressures that we've heard about from the leader this evening. And just very quickly to also welcome the CCTV coverage and the increase in the control room staffing. And as your colleagues know, I have championed, and I want to thank Councillor Wright for her work on that and all of the council officers. Hugely important work, particularly in the context of some of the shocking events that we have witnessed so sadly in our city recently. It's very, very important that these new cameras, the greater coverage, the upgrades, and the additional signage that will come with that, information for the public which will come in the coming months, as well as also, in addition, the safe space based at St Stephen's Church, which the council is contributing to. I welcome those things. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins, please.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say that I do welcome this report, as it demonstrates how well this side of the chamber are managing the finances of this council. Councillor Jobson there said that she was supporting this, but with some reservations, because she felt that somehow, despite the fact that her government had taken away 60% of our funding since 2010, that somehow we're responsible for that. Well, I don't see how we can be responsible for that, and I don't see how we can be responsible for interest rate rises either. So I hope she will reflect on that. And the other thing she mentioned in her speech was how we had borrowed money to invest in the well-needed infrastructure of this council when interest rates were low. And she said that we were a party of high borrowing. Well, can I just remind her that her government, when they took over power in 2010, inherited a public sector debt from our government of 64.7% of GDP. And that was only because we had to deal with a global banking crisis, which everyone accepts. Well, they didn't at the time, everyone accepts, given pandemics and wars since then, it was right for us to do so. In 2019, before the pandemic, or third sector back, that public sector debt had risen to 80.3%. So the party on that side, despite lauding themselves as being a party of good economic sense, can't manage our economy, they can't manage local authorities, they increase debt, they take money away from local authorities like us and Devon County Council. So the people of this area suffer, and the only way we can raise money is to increase council tax, which is a regressive tax, or increase charging. And the other thing, the party on that side this year, against this backdrop of incredibly difficult finances, didn't even announce the settlement until I think it was the middle of January. And it's only for 1 year. How could a business manage to run if they only have to work on 11 months, 12 months funding? They can't forward plan. And that's what the inheritance of this government has been. They promised to sort out local government finances and give us 3 years certainty, but they failed to do that. They failed local authorities miserably. I didn't stand up to say all of that, but I had to say in response to Councillor Johnson. I wanted to stand up and say what a fantastic job this council is doing on leisure. I am very impressed by the leisure services we've managed to maintain. Now, the parties opposite may not realise this is totally a discretionary service. We have no mandatory duty under Local Government Acts to supply any leisure services. But we on this side recognise how important it is to provide cheap, well-run leisure services to the people of Exeter to improve health and help obesity and the well-being of the people of Exeter. And if any of you go to those facilities like I do, Riverside and St Sid's, You've seen the people of Exeter there. They're not the people who go to John Lloyd, who fancy cars and go up there. They're people who live in St Thomas and out which I represent in County. And they go there and they enjoy it. It's a community spirit, mums doing aquafit, kids doing swimming lessons. It's fantastic. And it's to our credit that we've got that fantastic swimming pool and we've maintained Northbrook up at BPP so the children up there can have cheap swimming lessons and go to that. And that we built this fantastic facility in Sidwell's through the whole area. And other local bodies like Cornwall Council, what a great one.
Missing councillors, please, can we
Close all their council facilities or send them off to trusts who are struggling. And so I think we deserve a round of applause for serving the people of Exeter well in relation to its leisure services. Thank you. Councillor Horsford.
I'd also like to thank the officers for their efforts. I'd also like to thank the leader, the executive and the Labour group for their efforts to bring this budget together. As may be alluded to all the way, it's not always been a pleasant conversation. I think some of us may be a bit more forceful than they needed to be. But I think what we're presenting to you is a better budget than we could have been. I've not been on this council for as long as the Lord Mayor, but I would give anything to go back to my first budget on this bench in 2016. A budget that at the time felt painful, but was absolutely nothing compared to what I've just done in the past year. 7 years of the actions of our Tory-led government, in my experience, I have to say, there are many more for that, have left this council with serious issues and forced us to borrow money in order to provide black residents. We've all heard about the 60%, and I don't think sometimes we really realise how much that was, but that's been blood, sweat and tears from officers and members alike to get to this point, and I'm terrified of the years that are still to come. As portfolio holder for planning, I'm pleased to see that the retention of an enforcement officer, which is not a statutory service, as I'm often reminded, will happen, that the Article 4 will continue to move despite there never being any budget set to that in the first place, and the consultation for the local plan will continue through this year. I would also like to draw attention to our searches team, who this year won an award nominated by surveyors and solicitors for the speed at which and the efficiency with which they process the searches. It's another thing that's changed significantly since I first sat on these benches. I'm pleased to see that we've, as an early area that adopted the food waste in BP, I could not be happier with my service, and I'm slightly embarrassed by how much I can fill a food waste bin with 2 teenagers. But I can't wait for the rest of the city to experience this as part of the rollout, because it's genuinely been a strange joy to me. I'm pleased to see that we've made statutory services, but also I'm particularly proud of our commitment to leisure, the splash pools, the continued rollout of playground refurbishments, and the free, which offer cheap and free activities to young families in a time of financial crisis. And as such, I'm very pleased to support this budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hannaford, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As most members will be aware, I chaired the combined budget scrutiny recently, and I would commend this budget as a sound budget and a balanced budget. I think that was reflected in the discussions and the debates we had, and was passed with a large majority at that meeting. I think the leader has highlighted some particular areas that are important that Islands would feel strongly about, particularly the work about intermediate housing for those people with complex needs who are homeless, and particularly those who are survivors of domestic violence and abuse. And I think those particular 2 projects ought to get more coverage, perhaps in the media, because I think they've been underlooked, shall I say. And I think it's important during these difficult times that we do send out hope to those people who are affected by those issues, that there is help available, because sometimes the message gets out with all the cuts and service restrictions that there isn't anywhere to go for help. I think we need to keep on reinforcing that, which is important. I think it's very important as well, one of the issues that Councillor Morse actually didn't allude to, I think, in her speech, but certainly did come up, I think it's actually in her presentation before the budget scrutiny, was the fact that we're still keeping enforcement in planning going, which we're not actually, surprisingly enough, we don't have to do, which will likely surprise many people, but we are doing it because it's so very important to local residents who are enmeshed in planning disputes, which can blight lives and cause all sorts of problems. But I think we do have to bear in mind the issues that have been raised before. We've lost so much of our funding, but Exeter City Council still outperforms all the other districts in terms of its ambition and its vision, and particularly its economic development, which I think perhaps sometimes gets taken for granted. But you know, in Exeter, looking for business, encouraging enterprise and small businesses, etc. And perhaps in some of the more rural districts, they're key that they don't want their new factory built or a new economic venture starting. They're quite happy to sort of see things as they are, and that does put a bit of a strain on us. But I think we do it very well, and we are still the economic hub of the county. I think as well, during the cost of living crisis, and I did say this in another place, and I think it's important to re-emphasise this, we are yet again raising council tax, which is a very regressive tax. We know it hits those on lower fixed incomes. We haven't had a very good choice to do that, but we didn't have to be here. The government really took the cost of living crisis seriously. It would have done what other countries in Europe have done, which is give local government block payments so that they didn't have to raise local taxes, so that that would ease the whole process to make sure that the councils could deliver frontline services without penalising the poor and the vulnerable. We're not in that position, unfortunately. And in conclusion, Lord Mayor, I did want to raise two issues that were raised by Councillor Johnson. She said that play areas would be neglected. It did actually come up from combined scrutiny that there is a quite comprehensive programme which Councillor Hussain presented, because I, for one, certainly wouldn't be banging on the leader's door if I thought that we were not doing what we should be doing with our play areas. It's essential that in many of those up areas, in particular, the children have somewhere safe to play and less of some steam. And of course, it's no surprise I've already gone on the record with this that we're very pleased with the investment in St Thomas and also for the sister facility in Heavitree. It's always been a tradition we have one on either side of the river, and it is essential because, again, particularly in the times of austerity, that the families have somewhere free to go and fun to use, particularly this long summer holidays. And I know the leader and the deputy leader appreciate that, and is shown by their actions. The other concern I had, though, Lord Mayor, was Councillor Johnson alluding to the fact that we were losing our ward grants, and I'm not aware that we are losing our ward grants. Is that? Well, I don't think we're losing them in their entirety. They're being delivered in a different way from a different area. That's slightly different, and I think that the leader will clarify that, because I think that does need to be clarified. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wardle, try not to repeat what others have said, please.
Following on what other people said, I don't think that we can ignore the wider context in which the government had to operate in recent years. For example, the Institute for Government reported that local government finances were cut in real terms from 41 billion to 26 billion between 2010 and 2020. But before I come on to the 55 billion of spending cuts and tax increases that were announced in the autumn statement, I'd like to say a few words, if I might, about the Trust and Quasi-Quarter mini budget that precedes that. The Independent Resolution Foundation has stated that the Trust government mini budget blew a 30 billion hole in the finances, made up of 20 billion of unfunded cuts to national insurance and stamp duty, and another 10 billion in higher interest rates and borrowing costs. It was indeed turbocharged neoliberalism, but also grossly irresponsible. Although Liz Truss claimed afterwards, in a memorable Sunday Telegraph article on the 5th of February. Now, I don't normally buy the Sunday Telegraph, but I went out and bought a copy because I thought this is collector's item.
Is this to this budget?
It's referring to the cuts we have before us. It was all the fault of the left-wing economic establishment, to which she referred the Bank of England, the IMF, the Office of Budget Responsibility,
the Treasury and Civil Service mandarins, the BBC, President Biden, and the Parliamentary Conservative Party. And the irony of it all is despite their ideological belief in free markets, the decisive blow against the Truss government was dealt with by those markets. That's a supreme irony, and I think it's one that will go down in history. Return to the 55 billion cuts and tax increases in the autumn statement. These are all deepen the cost of living crisis and worsen the social fabric at the same time as the banks have been given 18 billion pounds of tax reductions, and it's recently been reported the big four banks made 19.8 billion profits in the first 9 months of last year. And of course, in relation to excess profits, we can't ignore those made by the energy companies, food companies, and other large retailers. The question I ask all is, why are these profits not taxed? Why are there not taxes levied on non-dom taxables and taxes on excessive wealth? During the pandemic, for example, the wealth of the richest 250 people rose from 565 billion to 6 billion.
We are discussing Exeter's budget.
Just a final point, Lord Mayor, and thank you for your involvement. During the pandemic, we heard a lot about key workers, but very little since, like postal workers, railway and health workers. Well, some of us in this chamber have been pleased to support the picket lines of those strikers in order to get pay rises in line with inflation. May I suggest, Lord Mayor, that taxes on the wealth I refer to would go towards those pay rises and invest in the jobs and broken down infrastructure and social services and invest in the infrastructure of the future. Lord Mayor, I commend the budget to you.
And thank you very much, Leader, for your speech. There's certainly much to celebrate in Exeter, and I would also say that there is much good work that the City Council do, so I would welcome that. And as you know, we do support you on many aspects, but it's also our job to offer alternatives and challenges too. And as Councillor Wardle alluded to, we are dealing with multiple crises here: government cuts, cost of living, rising inequality in the city, and as well as the real impacts of climate and ecological emergencies. So I'm concerned this budget doesn't show how the council will tackle the challenges that we will face. And I am concerned that in relation to a number of things that we've heard about, the food-based rollout is very welcome. We've been calling it since 2014, and so last in 2016 there was significant rolling it out, and we're now beginning to see that, but we haven't yet got a clear commitment about when that will happen across the whole of the city. Indeed, in some areas of St David's, we aren't seeing even proper recycling in some of the council houses. So I want to see that all rolled out, be clear when that is. I welcome your comments about Madison Bridge and the splash pads. I assume that what you're suggesting is that these are going to be added back into the capital budget, so maybe you could clarify that for me. You commented about the green space. Our medieval city leaders had the good foresight to create these green spaces that we now benefit from, and I'm glad you feel that we can celebrate those. However, the trees in those areas in the city centre, 11% tree counting, the rest of the city is 22%. Maybe the trees the lack of trees is still recovering from the felling of the trees in Northern Hay Gardens and Southern Hay in 1642, that I'm sure that you will recall. We need to invest more. You are very welcome to rectify that, and but we need to do that. But trees and our green spaces in the city centre are absolutely vital. So I just wanted to make that point there. We need to really absolutely make sure that we focus this budget on delivering essential services to meet the challenges that we have. and making sure that we don't have lots more unfunded strategies coming through this council. We need to have a really serious look at how things are coming forward and how they will be funded and be deliverable, because we have some very serious needs to meet. And I understand that the contracts for some of those community services are going to be funded from the community from the community infrastructure levy, but we're still not going to be having a proper programme of grant funding. Grant funding is important because it enables the nurturing of community life in these uncertain times, and it enables communities to act together and act for themselves on the issues that really matter to them. So the cuts to council, these cuts to the council budget can't be hidden under a bush. In fact, the auditors have said, as an improvement recommendation, that the council should be consulting with residents and businesses and about the impact on the services. And I would say, in terms of bickering about borrowing, we know, and it says in the papers, that 22% of the net revenue that we have, the income that we have in the council, will be spent on repayment of debt. That is money that might otherwise be the direct delivery of services. So that is a real challenge that we have to deal with, because it impacts on services, the council staff that will lose their jobs, and the residents who will see and feel the impacts of those cuts. So obviously you're going to stand by your budget, and I would say to you that if your offer of cooperation is sincere, it is without condition. I have spoken with you on many occasions about budget suggestions and proposals, which you then publicly ignore. That is your right. However, I do welcome the fact that the offer later taken on board, and the planning enforcement officer is one of those examples. It is possible for us to cooperate to work through these challenges. So, I would invite you to properly engage with residents, properly engage with us, so that we can tackle the challenges that we face together.
Councillor Pierce, please. Denny, sorry, Councillor, please. Denny, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Okay. First of all, I'd like to say I've gone away to quite a few people today about my different and about the cuts that we've had. And a lot of them have been saying, oh, Labour cuts. I had leaflet put through my door with the party, and it said Labour cuts. Well, it's not Labour cuts, it's Tory cuts. If the Tories hadn't cut our budgets and what they give us, 60 pence in the pound of what we had years and years ago, we wouldn't be doing this at all, would we? So it's not a Labour cut, it is a Tory cut that's done this, not a Labour cut, not the same kind of council. I'd like to say about the rents, it's a portfolio holder, okay? We didn't want to put the rents up, that's the last thing we want to do. I didn't want to do it, after all, I was telling myself, I'd have to pay it. But I did make the effort to go around and see some of the residents. I had to visit quite a few hostelries, I have to say.
We're presiding councillor, please keep it to the budget.
Okay. Well, it is the rent. Yeah. So what? And they understood that the rent would be going up, that they'd have to pay. If they want to keep the service, that would have to be done. So, you know, to Councillor Johnson, we didn't just do it on a whim. You know, it is because of the Tory cuts. But within housing, we have done quite a few. We have actually kept quite a lot of the services that we've had before. We've kept the decorating services that we could just abolish, and also residential support, which is all part of the housing revenue budget. Okay, we've kept as many services as we can. I'd like to say about cabin calls, obviously, about 100,000, yeah, that's it. And I have to say, as soon as Councillor Barnett said that we would do this, I thought, I'd rather have a cabin call in Heptree than Bridge on Madison Bridge, I'm afraid, because the residents in Heptree deserve it. And if any other councillors do differently, I'd like to say, you know, hey ho, you know, children are more important sometimes. There was a cost of living crisis, and some of them, this would be the only holiday they'll have, is having either going to St Thomas's or either going to Hampton Park. And having used those parks both, I'm telling you, they offer saving when you have no money whatsoever. All right. So, okay, have cuts, but it's a balanced budget, it's a good budget. You know, if the Tories haven't cut our money yet again, and we have to find more money, then we wouldn't be here arguing like this, would we? I support this budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, just one moment before you start to go. After Councillor Williams speaks in a minute, not at the moment, I'm taking them on. We've got 4 and 5 more to speak, all right? So Councillor Pearce, please.
Thank you, Lord. I just want to start with a point of clarification, really. You did say 175, 113 hectares. Right, okay. I mean, it's incredible to think for that amount of money, we can deliver all these services. Absolutely staggering. So, thank you for clarifying. We've got 2 points I want to address really that have been discussed by other people here tonight. And one is the borrowing. So, about a decade ago, I had 2 kids under the age of 3, and my washing machine broke down. So, one person in work, one person at home with the kids at the time, I knew one wasn't an option. So what did we do? We decided to invest in our future, in our family, so that we'd have clean clothes. We went and borrowed some money so we could buy a washing machine. And that, on a different scale, is what this council has been doing over the last number of years. While we've had empty rhetoric and about levelling up and savage austerity cuts of more than 60 pence, keep saying that more than 60 pence in every pound from this Tory government, this Labour council has been investing in the vital infrastructure that this city needs so that residents can thrive. Be that, you know, a paddling pool or a splash pad, people, you know, from some respite in the summer, or some of the more big grand projects that we've heard about from other members tonight. But that's what we've been doing here. I just want to make a little comment about the parking charges, as that came up as well, really. If you look at the data from the strategy, you'll see that our parking capacity is almost full all the time. So maybe, you know, it might be that one elusive product, you know, car parking in Exeter City, it's such a great venue to go to, that is a legal product that's inelastic. You know, maybe that is where we're at. It's a great source of revenue to try and offset some of the savage cuts. Back to the cuts again, sorry. And then, so to move on to what I really still have to talk about, which is the community grants programme. This has been an amazing investment. I think some of the best value that we've ever had. Last year, we spent £200,000 from our community grant programme on contract the city's advice service in the city. And if we just talk about the work they do on welfare rights, regardless of any of the rest of it, they've delivered people in the city £930,000 back in their pockets. That's money that's spent in the local shop, it's spent on the high street, keeps this city going. So more than £4 return for every pound we spend. That's incredible. Now, I could go on with similar stats about Exeter Connect, well-being, and so on, but you know, we've got this late and there's a long agenda ahead of us. So there's some real value in that. Now, the ward grants has come up for the next year, and yet the line in the budget in front of you, it is massively diminished, but we need some perspective on that and to understand why. So it's funded through the community infrastructure levy. That's money that we cannot allocate until we've received. Okay? So what I'm really excited about is the fact that we've got £15,000 committed as a base level in the general fund. We've not had general fund in community grants before 2019. So that's back there as a baseline level. We've got a number of invoices outstanding, or they were when these papers were drawn up. They may be paid by now, who knows? And as that money starts to come in, the community grants programme will be adjusted and money will go into it as the year progresses. And that was done in exactly the same format as we did this year when we spotted the cost of living crisis that was inflicted upon our residents by this Tory government. We reacted, had great discussions, constructive discussions between all the parties and the community grants panel, and decided to reappropriate some of that money to warm space grants. It was massively needed because they went within about 10 days. So we can be reactive, we can be flexible, we can be proactive as the year goes on. And that's what you'll see will happen. And hopefully, before the end of this financial year, we'll have a full and clear position on what still receipts are available to be spent on community grants for the next year. So it's there now because at the level it is in the budget in front of you, the because we don't know exactly what the figures will be. We know it will be more than what it is now because it's underspent in the current year. So that will definitely be in there next year, and then there'll be more as it comes in. So please rest assured, they've not disappeared. They're just on pause while we get a full picture, and then it'll come back. And I want to just commend the budget to all of this.
Councillor, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm going to attempt not to reiterate what everybody else has said. Despite the extraordinary pressures, this budget is to be commended for not only being balanced, but minimising the impact of necessary savings that have had to be made and protecting our residents. I wanted to talk about the food waste collection rollout, but other people have talked about that. I want to talk about the splash park facilities, but other people mentioned those. All of those could easily have been sacrificed, but instead we have maintained or we kept them. I want to speak as someone directly affected by the tragedy unfolding in the Ukraine. I commend the Council for their support and understanding of the humanitarian crisis which is currently unfolding. I'm heartened to see that they will continue to offer support not only to those who have come to us as refugees, but to our own residents as well, subjected to a cost of living crisis, not of their own making. This compassion and understanding continues with support for those who are street attached here in Exeter, with the creation of stepping stone homes, rough sleeping relief pots and emergency accommodation. In conclusion, Lord Mayor, I commend the officers involved in creating this budget, our portfolio holders and the leader for all of their efforts and hard work in creating this budget. I will be supporting it and I hope you will vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we all know that there has been a succession of savage hits that has affected every council in this country. And believe it or not, this Labour Party, within the city, we're not responsible for any of them. These are international and national, global issues that have impacted on every council in this country. Not all of them have weathered that storm as well as we have. So I'm speaking slightly on behalf of Councillor Parkhouse, who unfortunately isn't very well, but she's very proud of what the city has done for the leisure service. She's extremely proud of St Sybil's Point, the first passive house leisure centre in the country. And that is an example of where this council has delivered. A lot of, Councillor Zavida has said, 60 pools, according to the city, closed, more on the way. St Sybil's Point says 70% savings on fuel costs of a contemporary pool of the same scope. So that's 70% cheaper. In what? In energy. From what to shut off and making leisure centres close? Energy. So that's forward thinking, aiming towards responsible targets of zero carbon, and it has delivered us with a way to sustain our goals. So that's we also keep all of our 6 leisure centres going. Now that links in to my own portfolio. My own portfolio, last week I had the pleasure of seeing and switching on our solar farm down in Marsh Farm. That is another great investment, another great example of us working in partnership with other organisations and seeking out support and funding where we can to make up for the gap left in our finances by Tory cuts. What we've identified is ESF funding for the solar farm, 45% of a £3.5 million project. Now that project overall will generate £250,000 worth of savings for this council every year. On top of that, it will charge our electric vehicles that we run from the depot in Marsh Farm. Currently, we've got 3 large waste, the big compacting trucks that collect our waste. Those 3, just those 3, save 35,000 gallons of diesel a year. 35,000 gallons of diesel that aren't getting used. Overall, the project will equate to 582 tonnes of carbon emissions that won't be pushed out into Exeter streets. Now that's a council that delivers. That's a council that looks to the future and invests where it matters. We've heard a lot about
how we also invest in not just in the infrastructure that makes our services sustainable and responsible, but also in facilities for our residents. I was on Facebook earlier today, and I noticed how part of our ongoing scheduled repair service of play parks has been and visited the Arena Play Park. It looks amazing. They're not talking new equipment necessarily, it's making good use of what's there, making good use of the limited resources without, thanks to this government, proceeding conservatively.
Can you keep the budget? Oh, lovely. Thank you. You've got them all right. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was actually going to comment that day on that, but I'm not going to reiterate it. But just to say, I just want to pick up on a comment that Councillor Moore said, and she made some comments about St David's not having proper recycling. Well, it's a pity that you haven't actually contacted the outside council. Please do so. I don't think this is the appropriate place to make those sorts of comments when the team are not here to defend themselves. So that's very unfortunate. I would like to say that we did actually, in terms of food waste, we did actually think about not continuing with it to save money. And so I'm really pleased that everybody is supporting that, because having a staged rollout has meant we have saved the equivalent of 3 food vehicle trucks by actually making an assessment and running it in the most efficient way possible, and we're still learning from this rollout as we go along. So I'm so pleased that everybody's supporting that, and I noticed that the Roy councillors are actually claiming success for having it delivered in their ward. And you know, I don't have food waste myself, so I'm not prioritising my own home, my own area. I'm prioritising right across the city. So, you know, steady go, and we will get there. So, thank you very much for the support. I commend the budget to you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try not to repeat anything that's been said already.
Thank you.
Good luck with that, yeah. I also don't want to look backwards, particularly not to 1672, which I think scores a record for a budget discussion. 1642, I stand corrected. We've heard about all the things that we're so pleased that we can carry on with, things we don't necessarily have to, non-statutory or discretionary areas. So the RAM has been mentioned, so I won't mention it again, Lord Mayor, apart from the fact that the Gold Tourism South West Award was for accessibility and inclusivity, and that is a huge thing. And that brings in the compassion that's been spoken about already from this administration and this council for the things that matter to people, to all of our people here in Exeter. They're doing work with Age UK, Community Connectors, which have also been mentioned, pardon me. And it's free. It is still free to everybody. And in the current climate, we know how important that is for families to be able to have free access to leisure, arts, culture, and creativity. It's a huge thing which helps to keep us all well. So the support of arts and culture is also something I'm particularly proud of, that we're able to carry on doing at the moment. And many of these creative spaces are also providing warm spaces, as has previously been mentioned. Also in the arts and culture sector, we tend to overlook the fact that we have so many people in Exeter that work in creative arts industries, and because of the nature of their freelance work, rather than being employed, they very often get overlooked in statistics, but there's a huge amount of people here, so continuing work for them in this area is really important. CCTV staffing, thank you to my colleague over there who's already mentioned it and has worked very hard on this. But it's really important to note that this time last year, we heard from Mr. Tony Cox at the budget meeting, who requested more staffing for the CCTV control room.
At this point last year, we were obviously unable to include it in that current budget, but we listened to Mr. Cox's request, and we were then able to include extra staffing as a supplementary budget request. Since then, in partnership working with the Community Safety Partnership, which includes the University, Police Force, Exeter City Council, members and staff in Exeter CoLab and other important partners, have been able to maximise our part of the Safer Streets funding to increase our CCTV provision and coverage in a huge way, which is contributing to the betterment of the city centre and general safety for everyone. I've seen the immediate effect that this new provision has had in being able to direct the police to urgent issues, while also linking in with Exeter Safe Space, street pastors, best well-known establishments and traders. This Exeter City Council support for the work of the police in Exeter cannot be underestimated, particularly in the recent tragic event where the arrest of suspects was made due to alerts to the police from our CCTV control room staff. So I just wanted to note that again, this is not a statutory service, but one that we are proud to provide and is now budgeted for that extra staff. As we're all having to do, making our finances stretch to cover what they covered last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago is incredibly hard and in some areas impossible. But the vision that we still hold vital to support where we can, provide where we can, and work together for the future everywhere we can continues. We've had to make savings and scale back on many of the things that we would actually like to continue doing. But the work that's gone into this budget ensures that a lot of the discretionary services are able to continue and that we are still being innovative, supportive and forward-thinking for the things that we know are important in the city. That makes me proud to be part of this administration and proud to support this budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Bayani to sum up, please?
Thank you. I'll be as quick as I can, Lord Mayor. With regard to Councillor Johnson, thanks to Councillor Ward for that masterclass on national finance and those left-wing trot organisations that we all have to endure. And I think Councillor Johnson would have done wise to have listened to some of that. In supporting the budget, I'm very pleased you are. But I'd like to hear from you during the course of next year on what proposals you will bring forward, what cuts you will make to repay that money. What cuts will you do to make the council residents, and how much more you'll have to put up the car parking charges in this city to make sure you repay those money. If you look at the figures, we are actually doing a good job in doing all of that. Councillor Bizarre mentioned earlier, sorry, Councillor Williams, and I can remember during the pandemic we were criticised, differ and delay was two of the words we heard. We had to get it right, Lord Mayor. I think we got it right. And of course, I thought it was as simple as doing a ward each time. But of course, the city is divided in parts for obvious reasons. You see, we're all learning about waste now, and they're doing all of that. And I'm so pleased that that is happening. And you have a waste food bin coming to you soon, and I'm pleased for all of that. Councillor Bizarre also mentioned about the CCTV, as did Councillor Wright, and that was a commitment we did make a commitment last year. There's nothing I could do about it last year. Well, what can we do? We listened, we acted, we worked, and we sought funding, and we looked at resources to do it because we know it's important for this city. I wish we had £261.56, just like the Devon Cornwall Police do a lot more than with just £175. Councillor Atkinson was right. Those were some interesting stats over the national deficit over the years. You know, I thought we were being a little bit, but I can tell you, it's always been like this in the City Council, and I think that was important to note, that the borrowing requirement of central government is far higher. Councillor Moore, in reference to the rollout, and also what's going on with the Exeter plan, very, very important indeed. Councillor Moore, I'm glad that you say you celebrate, and I believe you do. Perhaps it's just me, I'd like to hear it a bit more often. I get a little bit sensitive about these things. And, you know, have you been sensitive to the point? Good, I'm so glad you have, and I think you'll find it very good. The rollout is good. The capital budget is the capital budget. Guys, come on. It's not 2016 even, it's not a few years ago. Interest rates have scuppered our situation on how we fund things going. We have to do the health and safety things first. We have to do the critical stuff first. We will. We hopefully that this budget will bring us some leeway going forward to look at things as they come in. I haven't got £537,000 to take out of that capital budget for Madison Bridge. I don't email me all you want, get lots of other people to email me, we can. So what we're doing is working with partners. That is what we're doing. Look at what we do. Look at how we try to do things. I'm working with partners across the city and with government institutions. This is the way they want it now. They don't give us block grant anymore. We have to beg for money from up there. That's what we have to do. That bid, I hope, will be successful. I want to see the Madison Bridge opened and available. And as we're cycling across it, if you can remember the old bridge, you should have really been cycling across it. You don't put in the bridge, and you just about pass each other. So let's say what we put back will be much, much better and much good. So I also would say that a lot of these things are unfunded. Well, I made reference around we've got to work with partners to bring monies into this council. And I believe we've been very imaginative with what we said. My speech is online. Have a look at it. You know, mark it out of 10. I'm not expecting gold star, but it won't be that bad in what we're doing. And have a look at some other authorities. We haven't closed all the toilets, like Brighton and Hove, by the way. I don't know who's running that one at this moment in time. We've not done things like that. Councillor Denning, you're right, there was a point made about the council house rises. They're forgetting we had 4 years of no rise. The year before they told us to buy our council houses. That was £53 million. We went and borrowed it. We borrowed it on the straight that we were going to have a reinvestment programme based upon the rates. Then the national government said we're freezing the council houses for 4 years. £7 million, £9 million that cost us. You know, we are doing a lot of home improvements for a lot of families, and we're still keeping them rents well below the other sort of sectors, housing association, the private sector. You know, and there's a lot to do with the retrofit. As I said, 420 homes. Give us a chance, give us a break. The guys are working very, very hard. Lawrence Blake, Adrian Pingelly and that team, I really do think they've done a great job. So the rents are very, very important for them now. Councillor Pearce mentioned about us investing, and just to let you know, we're not going into washing machines. We're going to do a lot, not washing machines. And we recycle a lot of things, but not that. The parking strategy has been made. Councillor Holland, you mentioned it in one of the amendments. We can't. Think about what's going on. So when they're voting to you, I can understand it, because everybody's looking where they can save. Actually, what have we done in Exeter? We've invested £50 million in a new bus station and a leisure centre as an attraction for the city. Anchor something in the city. That's what's doing. People are coming into the city and then they go off into the town. Look at it in there, it's busy. It's packed. I told you in my speech, the levels are way above. So we're doing these things. That's how we're supporting. What would you rather have? 10 pence off your parking charge, or investment into the city? Investment into the Guildhall Centre, what we're doing there. And the fact that we now have that property under our control and we can determine, and you've heard the commitment, what won't go in there, and I stand by that. So Councillor Knott, that was a good contribution. I'm so glad that the new councillor gets what goes on. He obviously reads the stuff, which is very, very important. And again, Councillor Williams went on about the rollout. Under a lot of pressure by me, I have to tell you, because I heard what you said. The opposition do a very good job. I know you do. But you don't know after meetings on what the original plans would have been to what we have to agree. All right? So you'll never know. But you do know that is the budget which, on good advice, we brought forward. So, I'm not hiding anything under a bush. This is my garden this weekend. I've trimmed them both all down. So there's no bushes to hide anything under. I understand what you said about the consultation. Right? I understand what you said about consultation. But you know, what I'll say, I don't mind saying it, we have a consultation every year. Right, in this city. We have a consultation every year. All right? In May. A consultation on what we're doing. We will carry out the wishes or the advice from you. We will do that. And we are doing it. We are doing it in so many areas. So, I'm glad you spoke with a bit of passion, because that's the environment I like. But I can tell you this now. You're not going to be lectured at. I'm not going to be heckled. I am clear on what we're doing. This evening I'll be able to go home and I'll be able to sleep knowing full well that the ruling party, as we're lovingly called, has returned a good budget for this city. Made sure we're still here this time next year when a lot of other councils are putting 114 notices, Conservative councils, I have to say, going under. We're still here. We will still be here, delivering services, as I indicated in my budget speech, to all those people in Exeter. We, this council, is the voice of Exeter. We will continue as the voice of Exeter. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. I'm proud that born in Exeter, educated in Exeter, worked in Exeter, and still live in Exeter, to be here representing people. What a great honour that is. And we take this very, very serious on this side of the chamber. We try to do things for everybody. So unfortunately, a lot of things in life, I mentioned now, a lot of things in life come with conditions. You just can't sit in this chamber and make all these things and then expect to be welcomed in to everything. I told you, we will discuss all these things with you, the areas that you spoke in, because we have put in a lot of these things. You know, I'll let you claim the enforcement officer. Don't claim the rollout, for goodness sake. You can't do that. I'll let you claim that, but she done it, we've done it. We've done the CCTV, we've listened to it there. Yes, it does come with a condition. If you want to collaborate and work with us, you've got to support this into this position. We've got ourselves 3.7 million is what we've got back. We've got some headway going forward. We've got to look at 2 million next year. If you want to come and sit and look at that with me, I'm happy to do that. But yes, it is conditional that you support this stage of the budget. And I hope you can find it in yourself, and for the representatives you purport to support, you can support this budget. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the vote now, and as you know, it is a names vote. So please make it clear or loud to whether you're in favour, against, or abstaining. Mr. Devlin will call the names, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can members please clearly indicate that if you're voting for, against, or abstaining on the motion that the leader has put forward, please. Councillor Basham.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Atkinson.
For.
Councillor Bennett.
Against.
Councillor Violet.
For.
Councillor Branston.
For.
Councillor Denning.
For.
Councillor Ellis-Jones.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Cassay.
For.
Councillor Hannaford.
For.
Councillor Harvey.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Knott.
For.
Councillor Lights.
For.
Councillor Kevin Mitchell.
Against.
Councillor Michael Mitchell.
Against.
Councillor Diana Moore.
Against.
Councillor Morse.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor Packham.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
For.
Councillor Reid.
Against.
Councillor Rees.
Against.
Councillor Snow.
For.
Councillor Sparling. Councillor Sutton.
For.
Councillor Vizard.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Warwick.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Wood.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
And Lord Mayor. So, Lord Mayor, I can confirm that's 26 votes in favour, 7 votes against, and 1 abstention. So the motion has been carried.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the first batch. Now, what I'm going to say now, we have a 5-minute comfort break. So, thank you. close the ordinary meeting, ordinary meeting of the council on the 21st of 2023. 21st of February 23. The item on the agenda is related to minutes of the 13th of December 2022. The extraordinary council meeting on the 20th of December. May I ask the members to prepare to move the minutes on the 30th of December in accordance to record proceedings? Is there a yes? Is there a proposal, please?
Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry? Oh, yes. Yes, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to have a point of clarification, if I may, on item number 67 in relation to the equalities impact assessment on the climate change items. And with the leader, of course, with the portfolio holder for climate change confirmed that the equalities impact statement in relation to religious groups has now been reviewed and not considered appropriate and is rescinded. Thank you.
I think for the portfolio holder, sorry. The perfect excuse, my God, that's it.
Of course, I wouldn't doubt it.
Let the portfolio holder respond to that clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Yes.
Yes, with regard to that, I took the issue up with the leader of the Net Zero team, and the equality impact assessment has been corrected. Unfortunately, it didn't make the final cut on these papers. It was due to be attached to the minutes of the last council meeting. They will be attached to the next council papers, and Marcus captured up there the minute where it should be recorded. The reference that you have made to religious organisations has been removed from the impact assessment. Unfortunately, because those papers were presented at the time, those papers are a fact of a document of the meeting. So that can be removed going forward. That reference has been removed and will be recorded.
Thank you.
Thank you. We were going to have a proposal which was already done by council. Can I have a seconder, please? Council, yes. Are you all in favour? Happy with minutes, please?
It's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. May I ask if someone is prepared to move the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 20th of December as a correct record of proceedings?
So moved, Lord Mayor.
Seconder? Thank you. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
Right. Now we come to correspondence. I've been quite busy before and during the Christmas period. I attended an enormous amount of carol services, the blue light services, Salvation Army Temple, carol service, the community, I can never pronounce it in Chinooka, celebrations in Bedford Street. My pronunciation is quite wrong, but it was a desperate weather. My concert I had to miss for Radisson, and that was taken by the Deputy Lord Mayor, and I was sorry to miss the cathedral service there. There was also the Exeter College students, which was a joy to watch, the students fetching their rewards at Rougemont Hotel, what they are achieving and what they're going out into the world afresh with their ideas. And it is always a pleasure to watch that, because you have memories of yourself many moons ago, what you're going to do, and what you end up doing is perhaps totally different, but that's good. The Holocaust service, I was honoured to attend that on the 27th of January, a moving service for Exeter. And the closing ceremony was in here, and also my dementia action program is still having coffee morning, so please help if you wish to join us on the Saturday mornings, which is one on the our last one was 28th of January, and I believe it's next Saturday or this Saturday coming, and it's always it's full of laughter, nice cakes, and a good cup of coffee and tea if you wish. So please come along. Now I'm going to continue with the agenda number 3. This is public questions, who is being set by the public. Question from Cynthia Thompson. She is not here, and by the law, the question cannot be read out. Can I? There is also one from. Yes, Mr. Cleasby. Yes, yes. Can you get a question from Whiskey? Who can I call to put your question, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The question is, when will final proposals for the design and implementation of the Exeter Development Fund be brought to the Council for approval?
Can I ask the leader of the council, please, may I invite you as well as Mr. Cleasby?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No date has been set for the implementation of the fund. This would require council approval, and only once a full business case has been prepared and presented to members. The work to develop a full business case is complex and will require 12 to 18 months to complete.
Mr. Cleasby, you have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 12 to 18 months from now to complete, and that's just to get to the business case. I mean, my understanding, I think the understanding of most people, is that the funding of the Livable Exeter housing programme is contingent on this vehicle, this funding vehicle, development fund, being brought to action. So what does this mean for the delivery of the Livable Exeter housing programme?
Well, I don't think it's dependent in that sort of way. We would like to do it, as we've tried to demonstrate to members to explain in some of the key areas where we want to do it. But we have to realise if we can't get that fund going, in other words, we can't get other partners to join with us, Lord Mayor, we will have to look at alternative ways of doing Livable Exeter. Rest assured that we want to bring about those 12,000 homes in Exeter over the next 20 years. That is our plan. That's what will appear in the local plan, hopefully. And it will be sustainable homes. It's a big ask. It's a big ask. But we're trying very, very well, Mr. Cleasby, and I feel sure you will be asking me further questions as to its progress as that 12 to 18 months develops.
I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cleasby. Now we go into the business of the agenda of the committees of the full council. Can I remind members, please, that we've had a long evening. Please do not repeat yourselves or but keep to the minutes that you are things. And the chair of the committees will take the minutes. So December the item 5, we're coming up to page 29. Councillor Hannaford is chair. Am I all right? Oh, I missed one. I missed one. Oh. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I told you it's going to be a long evening. Thank you. I will call on Councillor Fellow for the chair of the licensing.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present the minutes for the licensing committee on the 31st of January 2023. Inviting questions.
Anybody with questions, please?
In the absence of which I will move those minutes, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Can we? Now it's Councillor Hannah, please. I'm sorry to denote you into second place or first place in the second.
That's quite all right, Lord Mayor. So, to present the minutes of the Strategic Scrutiny Committee special meeting on the 12th of December, pages 29 to 36. Happy to take any questions or points, Lord Mayor.
Oh, Councillor, please stand.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I just want to ask, will the executive be supporting a public examination of evidence by the inspector rather than just receiving written submissions?
Lord Mayor, thank you, Councillor Reid, for that question. I think I'll refer that to the leader and the portfolio, please.
Those detail I'll ask the portfolio if we're in a position to answer that.
Obviously, I don't know the answer to that question at this present time. I think we both know that it costs a lot more to do it that way, so I need to assess it. But I am hoping to read them openly.
Just to add, Lord Mayor, we will do, this council will do, whatever we are legally obliged to do, and in that order, we will do that. We will not cut back on anything. I told you in my presentation, we had over 4,000 representation people have actually engaged. We're not going to ignore that.
Can I call on Councillor Hannaford again
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So move the minutes of the Strategic Scrutiny Committee, 19th of January, pages 37 to 44. Again, for the sake of any questions and points. No, I think that's settled.
Thank you, Councillor. Now I wish to call on Councillor Vizard as chair of the Scrutiny Committee, February, page 45.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to present the minutes of the Customer Focused Scrutiny Committee held on the 2nd of February 2023. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor, yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I was just referring to minute 6. It says, it's anticipated that the full rollout of food waste collection will provide a significant increase in recycling rates from the current levels to nearly 50%, which is obviously fantastic. So I just wonder if the portfolio holder or yourself indicate when we expect the council to achieve this target, please.
Lord Mayor, I would defer to the portfolio holder on this comment.
When the food rollout is complete?
Where's that?
I can't give you the precise date for that, sorry.
Are there any further questions? I beg to move. Thank you.
Excuse us, please. The recommendation to council is that the following cards will be finished. Working group recommends they will be moved to second and adopted by council, voted on then. Is that right?
So Councillor Vizard, there's a recommendation to
In the
minutes for the council.
Apologies, indeed there is. I was unclear on
It's
the.
not made clear.
It is indeed a recommendation on item 7. So I move that recommendation.
You vote. So that's open for discussion.
That's it.
Well, yes, do you have a second of council? Council.
So, Councillor
Right, can we have open for debate now? Ladies and gentlemen, we're open for debate here. Councillor Mitchell, are you on the speak to the debate?
I'm here to second.
It was seconded before. I feel that I saw your hand first, I have to accept that. Sorry. But do you wish to speak? That's confusing, that happens when you cross talk.
Thank you. On behalf of the Prosecution and Scrutiny, Customer Service Scrutiny Committee, we would like the Council to endorse the report and the recommendations of the report, which will look for action to contact outside bodies, again beyond our control, but outside bodies we feel have a part to play in regard to the homelessness situation in Exeter. I would very much like to point out that all the recommendations in this report are evidence-led. They're evidence-led by practitioners in the field, not politicians, political musings. These are all from the experts in the field in regard to homelessness in Exeter, in the county and nationally. And we will call upon you to support these recommendations, which lead us to report back in 6 months to the Scrutiny Committee on progress that's been made, both in regard to the representations and in regard to the homelessness points we take in regard to Exeter City Council. I thank Richard and the staff and the homelessness team for working with us, and Councillor Pearson's portfolio holder, and particularly Councillor Getty for raising this issue in the very first place. It might have taken a long time, but I think what we've got is an excellent product that hopefully will add to the housing strategy, homelessness strategy of the Executive going to consider, and this will support it, not undermine it in any shape or form. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to speak specifically about this recommendation, because I'm very much on the set of recommendations. I very much welcome, but particularly item 10. As many people know, I've for a long time chaired the Children's Scrutiny at Devon County Council, and one of the big areas of concern for many years, both through our inspections and the Ofsted, is the role of young people and care leavers and the issues around housing. Only last week we had a corporate parenting forum with a presentation from care leavers and their support workers, and sometime earlier than that, Councillor Denning and Councillor Pearce kindly attended. I organised a seminar with care leavers around the issues and challenges that they face, and I thank them for their contributions they made. We invited, Lord Mayor, all of the portfolio holders for housing and all the district officers in with care leavers, because of the problems and the issues are many and varied, but particularly the change in the housing allowance, which mitigates against the younger people, so they don't get enough money to have their own properties. It's a massive issue in Exeter in particular. We have had many young people and care leavers who have been put in houses of multiple occupation that are completely unsuitable, with people that have been through the criminal justice system, drug dealing, who have actually made themselves, and I don't like the term intentionally homeless. They've actually gone out and bought a tent to go out of the allocated accommodation they've had in the city, because they feel safer sleeping in the park or public space than the house that's been allocated to them by the system, which is completely unacceptable and outrageous. So anything that can be done to mitigate that in Exeter and across the county has to be welcomed, and I certainly commend this, because we cannot go on like this. This is why the County Council Children's Social Care failed its Ofsted, because around the housing issues previously, where there were young people that were sleeping rough or vulnerably housed, and there was too much of a low tolerance of risk to those young people. And I think any work we can do between the County Council and City Council, because we overlap in terms of children's services and housing, has to be welcome. I would, Lord Mayor, put in a plea that I still hope that all of the districts, I'm looking at the leader here at the moment, I'm on the spot today, I do hope that the discussions around free travel for care leavers is progressed, and also the at some point, and probably better I do this after the budget discussions than before, the exemption up to the age of 21 for care leavers that some district councils have done. I know Councillor Pearson and Councillor Denning are looking at that, but if that can be worked out at some point. That would also help because that would mean that they would have more money to overcome the discrepancies in the housing allowance that are referred to in your report, because I think we all know that care leavers don't often have a family caring family, and whereas we could go to the bank with mum and dad to help out with that council tax exemption, that would just give them an extra cushion until they're 21. Sorry, Lord Mayor, to put in a cheeky bid for that, but I couldn't miss the platform on behalf of the care leavers and young people. Thank you.
And that's perfectly all right. You're true to form. Thank you, Councillor Hannaford. Thank you for that. Now we have a combined vote on the strategy scrutiny committee, customs focus committees, and the committees held on the 9th of February. Those in favour?
Unanimous vote there.
Now can I call on Councillor Williams? Oh, yes, can I call on Councillor, just a minute, will you? Oh, combined, I'm sorry, Councillor Hannaford, you are.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've forgotten how many meetings I chaired over that period. To be honest with you, it was a bit post pre-Christmas. It hadn't sunk in. So moved the meeting of the Combined Strategic Scrutiny and Custom Focus Scrutiny Committee, 9th of February, pages 73 to 82. I'll have to take questions on any points. I think members are content, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Those on the vote on that, will you take those? No, right. And now, Councillor Williams. I'm so sorry to have derailed you slightly. But Councillor Williams, Chair of the...
No problem, thank you, Lord Mayor. I present the minutes of the Exeter Hard Board of the 15th of December, pages 83 to 86. Happy to take questions. I move the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have now Councillor Knox or it's not, is it?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I now wish to present the minutes of the meeting of the Strata Joint Scrutiny Committee, which was held on the 5th of January 2023. And invite any questions from members.
They seem to be content, Councillor Knox.
I beg to move.
Thank you. Now I call upon Councillor Bialik as Chair of Strata Joint Executive Committee to the 17th of January, please. January 11, page 91.
Minutes of the Strata Joint Executive held on Tuesday, the 17th of January 2023. I moved the minutes, but in doing so, Lord Mayor, there is a resolved matter on item 5. There is a recommendation on item 6 that the Strata Business Plan for 23-24 be approved by our council together with the other local authorities. I'll move, Lord Mayor.
Do you need, I need a seconder, please, before we start. Thank you. Yeah. We now go to the open. Yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you, Leader. If I could just ask for some clarification on what progress has been made in ensuring that achieving net zero by 2030 is integral within the strategy plan. Thank you.
Councillor, yes.
Lord Mayor, thank you for that question. We'll get back to you with the answer. Thank you.
Is there any more questions, please? Right, then we go to the vote again.
All those in favour, please raise your hands.
There's a one, sorry, so I better keep them up.
choose. 28 in favour of that.
Against? Abstain? 3, 4.
Okay, so that's right, four abstentions are against, that has been carried over that.
Right. Thank you. Now, we go. Can I call on Councillor Ayala as chair of the executive to introduce minutes 2 of the executive meeting, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Executive 10th of January 2023. We'll go minute 1, minute 2, minute 3, minute 4, minute 5, minute 6, Lord Mayor. To amend that recommendation, it's the last couple of lines, everybody, if you look at it, where it says, consideration of the executive meeting on the 4th of April, to delete everything from meeting on the 4th of April 2023 and council meeting on the 18th of April, and substitute after the word executive and council meetings after in due course. Yeah, in due course, Lord Mayor. The plan will come forward in due course. Taking out the dates. Well, now, the reason for doing that is, I'll need a second for that in a moment. The reason for doing that is, we're not ready for it, we're just preparing the case to make sure it comes back to executive and council in the right order. I need a second, thank you.
And who's the second was? Who seconded, please? Yes, Councillor Ryan. Now, who's speaking? Councillor.
I'd like clarification from the leader about the changing of the date, because the proposal for the recommendation was to proceed on a Wednesday delay of the business plan, and that was the reasons were set out at the executive meeting. Now, the auditor's report sets out very clear issues in relation to exiting, so it is really important that council see the business plan, and it isn't further shuffled along throughout the year, because at this point we're halfway through the year before we agree that current year's business plan. So there's quite a number of issues around the financial operations and also the governance of ECL. So we will need to see that business plan in full as soon as possible.
Councillor Ryan.
There's no other question.
Or is there any other questions? No? Councillor Ryan.
Well, now, I don't object to the word shuffle, as if we're doing something on that. There's better words to be used in this so-called collaborative era that we're now approaching. And so far as I could bring it back to you on the 4th of April, short and sweet, nothing to report at this time, not ready. Rather than take that to the council on the 18th of April, nothing to report, not ready. What we're saying to you here is a good job, and you do have a business plan already in place. We had a business plan agreed last year, and they're working to that business plan. Whereas we approved the business plan, Lord Mayor, it is Exeter City Living who is working to that business plan. They're working at the plan, bringing it forward. No decisions on any of that has come forward. All we need to know is that at the moment we have thought that we'll be dealing with the full rule later on. That is part of it coming forward. So we bring them forward in the appropriate order. I'm fully aware of what the audit report said in relation to government, and we're working through that at the moment. And we're working at the whole thing to bring a report back, as I have said this before, Lord Mayor, to the executive and to the council on how we intend to take ECL forward. ECL, which I've said many a time now, has changed. The construction environment has changed completely out there, hasn't it? And so we have to take that into account and bring forward the plan. At the moment, there's the plan, they're working to the plan. So don't worry that something's missing, something being shuffled down the road. It's not. We'll deal with it when we have all the information. It will come back to the council Lord Mayor, and that's what I'm proposing to do at this moment in time.
Thank you, Councillor.
Recommendation.
Pardon?
I move the recommendation.
Thank you. Those in favour, please. Hands high. Those against? Have you got,
Do I have councillor again in favour of that, please?
Yes.
25 in favour of that.
Against, please. Abstentions.
That's 6. Sorry, no, that's 7 abstentions. So 6 abstentions, sorry. So that has been carried.
Right. Now we're in minutes.
Lord Mayor, minute 7, budget strategy and medium-term financial plan. There's a recommendation here that we note the contents of the report and approve the principles establishing the balanced revenue budget and capital programme. Lord Mayor, I move.
Second, please.
Second, Lord
Well, that's one.
Any questions on item 7, please? Sorry? Yes, please.
Please accept this recommendation, please, because we have to open it again.
So,
On the budget strategy.
Yeah, item 8.
7. From item 7.
Yeah. 8 or 9.
Yes, recommendation of council. We still haven't voted on the recommendation to council, which is to note the contents of the report.
So, those in favour?
That's 27 in favour of that.
Those against? All those abstaining, please. No.
6 abstentions on that, so that hasn't been
Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor, for bringing that to your attention. Item number 8, Councillor.
Lord Mayor, this is a resolved matter, so we can all relax. Any questions on minute 8, Lord Mayor? Minute 9, Lord Mayor, is also a resolved matter. There's no questions. I'll move on to minute 10, local council tax support scheme 2023. And there is a recommendation here that I so move.
Second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Do Councillor Acton, please? Councillor Acton.
Yes, this is not, it's just a question to ask the leader who what the care leader said to their corporate parents last week. Could we investigate whether it is possible to have a council tax exemption scheme for Devon's care leavers who live in Exeter going forward for the new year, for the next budget?
Lord Mayor, happy to discuss this with the Devon leaders if you want to, but like all things, it goes with a cost, and if we think this is where we want to spend our money, I'm happy to support that. We'll bring it to you, and a decision will have to be made, is if you want to do it. It's all very well for the county to decide these things, they're not the ones doing it, although their share of that loss would be greater than ours, I suppose. Happy to discuss it. I am chairing the Devon leaders, I'll make sure it's on the agenda. Mark, at the next meeting, the Devon leaders, that's where we are with that, and the Lily papers bring that report back to the executive.
Thank you. Minister Devon. Oh, Councillor Hall, beg your pardon.
I move item 10.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Can we have your vote on this? On hold or not? It's number 10, was it?
Yes, but the council tax.
Chair, can we have those in favour, please?
That's 32 in favour.
Any against? Any abstentions? Councillor, you did not vote at all. Your hand's none at all. Are you abstaining or?
No, I voted in favour.
Oh, did you? Oh. I didn't see your hand.
That's unanimous on that has been carried.
That's been carried.
Lord Mayor, item 11, report on member training. This is a resolved matter, Lord Mayor. And therefore, I'd like to move the minutes of that meeting, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, you want me to move minutes of the executive for the 7th of February? Minute 12, minute
Yes.
13, minute 14, 15, 16, resolved matter, 17, question, one question, yeah. Says East Devon. Yeah.
I'd like to ask the leader about, we've been commenting on East Devon and Cambridge and Torbay's job of local hands, but I would really like to know what we're going to be doing to undertake serious cooperation with the neighbouring authorities, because their growth plans are having a significant impact on Exeter, on the edge of Exeter. We've already seen that in south-west of Exeter. So can you tell us what will happen to make sure that we have a robust approach to creating communities of adding on to school?
Lord Mayor, on that issue, we are in discussion with the leaders and I know the officers over the joint consultations and discussions. It is an issue that we're very concerned about. Not so, or urban sprawl is indeed one issue, but the strain on Exeter in particular. Because it's not about strategy, is it? Stick your houses on the side of Exeter, take all the silver somewhere else. And meanwhile, they're all coming into our lovely new leisure centre. And we made no contribution for using our services. So, Lord Mayor, we are doing those discussions. I can assure you, when there comes a time where we need to actually get it. I can tell you, I don't think we'll get, and I've got a councillor from East Devon in the room. I know they will get an awful lot of too much discussion this side of May, as all those three authorities that we deal with in the former, am I allowed to say it? Yes. In that former area, they're all up for all out elections. So I'm not sure I'll get too many commitments until gone May. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
To Councillor Halford, is this now a question because the leader?
I can make it a question to assure the councillors or through the leader. Is the leader aware that I was unaware, as one of the roles I had as chair of children's strategic scrutiny, was to actually be asked to provide correspondence and submissions about these local plans in conjunction with Councillor Morse as the portfolio and the leader of the council, and is he further aware that I've had the opportunity to tweak my letters to these other neighbouring district councils such as Torbay and East Devon and Mid Devon and others, because is he not also aware that I've also been concerned that they're going to do what I call a housing dump on Exeter and houses around the city, and therefore we have to pick up the tab of the services and the infrastructure and place pressure on our medical facilities. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Just on that point, Lord Mayor, I hope they listen to Councillor Hannah more than they listen to me.
Thank you. 17, please, number 17.
17 is everything we've dealt with in the budget, I know that for sure. 18 we've dealt with in the budget, 19 and also 20, Lord Mayor, which moves us on to
21.
21 indeed, council tax premiums, and here there are 3 recommendations that have to be moved over there.
Thank you. Who seconded that? Those wish to speak, please. Councillor Moore.
One question.
20 DPR.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I welcome this proposal. And I just wondered if the leaders had thoughts on how this money might be invested back into communities.
Any other wish to speak? No, the councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's about 505 properties that fall into this category that we will level this on. We're hoping it won't come in for a year to be able to give this notice, so it won't come up next year. We're also concerned about some of the get-outs, that the loopholes that they may try to find in the tax code, so we don't know. We know there is a potential of 120 or something like that, Kay, but whether that comes to fruition, we'll have to wait and see. But when it comes to my spending ambitions, I do know that the finance director spends a lot of time curbing my ambitions on what I want to spend. Thank you.
Those in favour, please raise your hands.
That is unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Thank you.
Item 22, Lord Mayor, one extra annual review. There's a recommendation that we note the progress to say that we need to be careful with any future questions or answers, because we may include part 2 otherwise. If there are any questions, people may think it's part 2. If they want to email us, we'll make sure you get those answers in part 2. Thank you very much.
Yes. You've heard the leader. If we do one question, means I have to clear the council. So, vote straight to the, you've seconded. We go straight to the vote, please.
In favour, Lord Mayor.
Any against? And no abstentions. Abstentions of the.
It's 4 abstentions, Lord Mayor. And that has been carried.
Right.
Lord Mayor, item 23, annual pay policy statement. There's 2 recommendations which are formally moved.
Thank you. Questions?
I second those recommendations.
Yeah. And again, we're in the same vote. If we do, it's oh, it isn't. Vote. Then we now can discuss it if you wish. No discussion. Right, we go straight to the vote.
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Item 24, gender pay cap, and there are 3 recommendations here which are formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Second, Lord Mayor. Any questions would like to be asked? No? Right. Vote, please.
That is unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Right.
Lord Mayor, minute 25, Exeter homeless and rough sleeping prevention strategy 23 to 27. Here, there's a recommendation that we approve the strategic priority. I formally move.
Thank you.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Now there's a recommendation. Any questions? Thank you. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is about the action plans and funding for this plan and when we might see those. And also just, I've been interested in the minutes of this new board will be publicly available. Thank you.
Leader.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If we are legally obliged to publish minutes, we will publish them. I will take away and look to see if it is appropriate, redacted or whatever, to bring them forward. They will come to the executive in part 2. They will come to the executive in part 2, in any event, and we will discuss them there. If they can be put into part 1, I see no reason why they shouldn't. So that response is a response to somebody with a bit of responsibility who has to think about these things going forward. I want to do things that people can do, but I also have to protect the interests of the council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Any debate on this, please? On what state you've already spoken, councillor? Did we? Yes, you can, yes, I know. Your point of order. Are you speaking under the point of order?
Yes.
Right.
Just the first part of the question, Lord Mayor, about the action plans and funding for the plan. Just clarification.
Councillor.
Well, it's clear to me we will support the strategic priorities. We will fund when we need fund, but that has got to be taken away and dealt within it. You're asking me to commit to money that I don't know whether we need to spend or have to spend or whatever. I'm just not going to do it. It's not a responsible way. I stand by what I said a few months ago. If we can do something, we need to do something, we're going to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a recommendation, so can we go to the vote, please?
Those in favour? Sorry, Lord Mayor, just to confirm, this is in favour?
This is in favour.
Yes, so that's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
26.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I've got to close a non-plenary interest in minute number 26, so I have to leave.
This is the National Portfolio Organisation Funding 23 to 26. There is a recommendation that we approve the funding table. I would say that this was a line in the budget which we agreed, which said there was a total 100% saving. So you can't change that, but you may want to change the numbers with it. And if they all add up to 100,000, we can consider it. But otherwise, that is the limit. So that's what we're putting the funding on, and that is the recommendation.
Councillor.
Thank you. I'd like to know what impact that these changes, these reductions in the funding will have on friendly organisations and delivery of the cultural city.
Anybody else? Is there anybody else? No, there isn't. Councillor Bayer.
Well, Lord Mayor, I'm not going to stand here and say it's not connected. I'm not going to say that at all. Because the MPO is being reduced to the city as a whole. A number of organisations have been taken out. And for 10, 12 years more, we have joint funded our share of those. And we basically top slice that every time and say to that commitment. We're still making this commitment going forward, and we are committed to that. So we are working with the university and other partners, the creative art and all those, to make sure that culture remains an important part of the city's offer to people coming into Exeter. Will there be changes? Oh, work it out, Lord Mayor. It's not changes that we're pushing in, but it's happening everywhere. And we've had discussions with the partners, taking it forward, Some may not like it, but most understand it all now.
Thank you. Now, those in favour, please wait if the vote, please. Those against, sorry, my fault, I'm too quick.
So that's 28 in favour on that.
Those against, please. And abstentions, please.
So that has been carried.
Thank you. Minute 27.
Minute 27, Lord Mayor, parking tariffs. This is a resolved minute. I'm happy to take
questions. Yes. Any questions, please, Councillor?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There was a discrepancy in the paper between the introduction that said that all car parks will be in the central area will be charged on Thursday evening, and the table which said that they wouldn't. So why do you think that is justified not to charge all car parks in the central area on a Thursday evening?
So, Lord Mayor, Councillor Moore is pointing out an inaccuracy in the document, and she is trying to get me to say something different. What I'm saying is we've now made the decision on car parking funding strategy, and that's what it is. As for the interpretation of that document, we'll have to look at that, but that is the decision we made in the budget some time ago. I'm not prepared, I don't think I can reverse or change that.
Thank you, Chair. The following item, number 28, is part 2. If you wish to discuss this, I'm afraid we would have to again clear the hall. So, 28, please. Leader.
Minute 28, Lord Mayor. Minute 29. Minute 30, there are.
It's a recommendation.
These are the.
Do they have to be, is the recommendation, is it as 28, do we need to take a vote on that?
Yes, Lord Mayor. There's some part 2 stuff. We need to go into part 2
if there is a discussion.
Yeah,
that's what I'm. So
I'll do that if there are detailed questions. Happily take them and respond to them, Lord Mayor.
Yes, is there any questions, please? Well, that is 28. Do we then take the vote on this, on each item?
There's a recommendation there under minute 30.
I was on 30.
Yes, I'm sorry. No, it's good.
So I move those recommendations, Lord Mayor.
Those in favour, please. I forgot. You're right.
That's
You seconded?
26 in favour on that.
Because we have to do this properly. You were seconding, right? I'll ask you. Did you second? Yes.
Let's go back to the vote again on that. So we've got the vote, those in favour, please. 26 in favour on that.
Those against?
5 against.
Abstentions, please. 2.
2 abstentions. That's been carried on that one.
At minute 32, Lord Mayor, all road development site, this was a part 2 item. Again, there are 4 recommendations. If you want to. 31. Yeah, sorry, 31. Right down the bottom, the city centre parking. There's the 3 recommendations there that are fully moved, Lord Mayor. Sorry about that.
No, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I second all that.
Thank you. I think we must be voting. Now, if this is any discussion, please. No? No discussion, right. We'll go straight to vote, please. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
That's right. So now you're on 32.
32, Woodland Ride Development Site, there are 4 recommendations here. Again, this was a part 2 item. There are detailed questions that you would like to email me, you make sure they get the financial details. This is commercially sensitive, and if you want to ask anything, it's all there. And actually, most of it is in the part 2 minutes of the executive meetings that you all got access to in any event, but happy to take up any questions. Well, then, can I just point out, just for ease of clarification, if anybody else is listening, the site is going to be developed in 3, hopefully 3 parts. The first part is one that we've got the funding for. That is 35. That is 35 affordable homes. The remaining homes are also, councillors, they're also, the remaining homes will also be council homes. So if anybody's got any confusion about this, we're only doing the 35, and we're not doing that, just hang in there, wait for the other plans to come forward, let's get this away, and all will be reviewed. I know you will then.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
I'll move those minutes on there.
Yes, any, those in favour?
I second.
Second, yes, thank you. All in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor. That's carried.
Wonderful. Now, yes, we're all to the notice situation. Can I have this council and Mitchell for the legislation, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Do you wish me to read out the motion? I take it that was read on the Lord Mayor.
I'm sure they will.
I'm hoping my comments will be as brief as the motion this time of evening.
Have we got a second there before you start? Yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Before I start, could I thank Michelle, Jane, and David from the Finance and Council Tax team for giving me all the data that was required and answering some of the basic questions at times with regard to the implementation of working council tax system in Exeter and in the CBA. Since its inception, governments have seen council tax as a major source of local government funding. The core argument made at the time was about local accountability. The tax was paid locally, we as members were accountable locally for its spending. Sadly, we seem now to have a system that ties the body from both of our hands behind our backs. Councils are now in bidding wars with each other for government funding for projects, as we've heard this evening, where the government decides the priorities. Local councils are being forced to think outside the box to raise income, for establishing property companies, placing borrowed public money in risky capital investment funds. One old council mentioned Terrick, Croydon, and near a home in Devon District Council to understand the problems that some councils face. This motion aims to restore some fairness and equity within the council tax regime and allow local councils to determine their own priorities for spending of all the monies due from council tax in their area. The government over the years has correctly and rightly introduced exemptions and discounts and allowed for local council tax support schemes. These are needed whilst council tax remains. The issue is that each local authority is differently impacted by these exemptions and discounts, which are determined by national government, not ourselves. This is in effect income that is not received by the local authority, but is also clearly not fully reimbursed by central government. It forms an element of the grant funding formula from central government, but it's not a recognisable accountable element. And no finance officer can actually tell you the exact sum that we receive from central government in the light of those exemptions and discounts, that we operate at their will. The principle behind this motion is that each local authority should be reimbursed by central government fully for the losses of council tax income due to nationally determined exemptions and discounts. In the case of Exeter, there are currently 7,500 exempt properties. The loss of council tax
from these amounts to £13 million a year for ourselves, Devon County Council, police and the rescue services. There are over 20,000 people in Exeter who receive discounts, largely the 25% single person discount. The total sum involved is approximately £9 million. There are also 4,450 individuals who are assisted by the means-tested local support scheme, and the total sum involved there is £7 million. The government already acknowledges the concept of 100% reimbursement in regard to council tax exemptions. And I mentioned council tax exemption T, which relates to granny flats. That if you have an annex in your property, which a member of your family, or the only member of your family lives in, instead of paying two council tax rates for two separate properties, you pay one council tax rate, and the government reimburse the local authority 100% of the loss of income on the granny flat. And you'll be pleased to know, because Phil was supposed to tell you exactly how much that money is, but just to remind him, until Exeter got £7,633 last year for this exemption for our 6 granny flats in Exeter. But if we were to move to East Devon, you'd be pleased to know that East Devon, they got £107,000, 706 exactly, in granny flat exemptions. So just another example of the variation between a council and the way the discounts and exemptions work. If the government is serious about levelling up and ensuring that we as local councillors are held to account to our electorate, as the leader said, every May the 4th equivalent, for our decisions and that council tax spending that we undertake, they say that council tax is a tool of accountability. That was a full argument when the council tax, those who remember back to Mr. Thatcher, the introduction of council tax, to make councils of extreme politics, left or right, should we say at the time, accountable to their electorate. And that was the rationale behind council tax. Therefore, I ask you to support this motion that we lobby central government, MPs and our various bodies to ensure that government's annually clearly set out and repay to local authorities the money they do not derive through nationally determined exemptions and discounts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to start by saying I welcome this motion from my fellow ward member to bring it forward. It's great to know really that you now support and endorse what we previously stated as our party policy and the actions that our leader has taken in the past. You know, he actively lobbies both MPs that serve the city council area and central government directly on many occasions calling for reform of this council tax. The system we're currently is one of the most aggressive taxation systems in the world. It's not fit for purpose at all. Possibly the only thing that any positivity you can say about it is that it's slightly more popular than the previous regime. So we didn't have people rioting in the street trying this one, like the whole tax did 20 years ago. So that's probably the only good thing you can say about it. It's not been reformed as it needs to be over the last 20 years. And it's only a decade ago that they finally got rid of the empty homes discounts. That was the time in this place where there was more than 2 lived there, and we probably sat on that side, I think, at that time, when that went through this council in 2013. In that last 10 years, what's happened? Nothing's happened. All the reforms that should have taken place haven't, so we're now left with a policy taxation that is just reasonably massive inequality. So during Harvard schools, you pay 30 times the amount of somebody in Kensington and Chelsea if you look at the percentage of your house value. So it's not a proper taxation regime at all. You know, it's absolutely right, correct, there are exemptions and that those people in society who need the support are supported, but they should be supported by central government, not by local taxation services, because it's regressive, it's not fit for purpose. I'm slightly disappointed that I think the motion probably doesn't go far enough, because the government have been lobbying passionately and great evidence and great weight by many people in the last 20 years, and they've done nothing. So really, if we want to reform this local taxation system, what we need is a new government. So I hope that people will take the tonight when we vote for this motion and support it is that you all go back and lobby in your wards, and if you're one of the 10 wards that's part of the Exeter constituency, you urge people to vote for Labour's respective parliamentary candidacy race, so that we get the government we need. And if you represent one of the 3 wards that will soon be in the East Exeter and Exeter constituency, whose MP is trying to do a chicken run to the Sid Valley, you know, it's obviously all fair and sunny and all opportunities. Vote for the respective parliamentary candidate for the Labour Party there, because that's the only way we're going to end up with a fair taxation system in this country. It's time to change the government. Thank you for bringing this motion forward.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not altogether certain why Councillor Mitchell is seeking that the general taxpayer pay the taxes for the commercial operators who get exempt properties in Exeter. We're talking about HMOs, such as student housing. A lot of those are run by landlords who have many more than one property. And there are some good exemptions. It does not take into account the commercial operators of PBSAs who do not pay business rates. They should. So yes, we do need to lobby government, but we don't need to lobby government for the taxpayer to give us more money. We need to lobby government to make sure that commercial operators pay fair taxes. That is part of what levelling up is all about. So there are some very good exemptions. I think Councillor Atkins mentioned one or two of those a little earlier. But what we need to be doing is lobbying government so that PBSAs pay business rates and that HMOs that are run by commercial landlords also are council tax. It may just do what so far has not been achieved in Exeter and encourage some landlords to rent to a wider range of people than students. I would stress that campus accommodation should be exempted from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Is part of the speak? Yes.
Just yes, I mean, I'll be supporting this motion. We had a similar motion in the past. This will be qualified a bit more. We support it. Just need to be said. I mean, already got policies and motions that have gone through this council with regard to student accommodation. You know, we said they should be done, of course, but during that debate, I just wanted to remind when that came in the early 90s, not 1642, but 1992, insofar as it was done at the time when Labour was seeing that more and more, mainly working class people, going to university. And it was meant to be support for those families who actually support their children living away by exempting them of the council tax. Although, but what's happened is it's an artificial subsidy for the market. That's the trouble. And that's what we're trying to cure. So I understand how it started, well intentioned, but it's been abused. Totally agree, it's been abused. I don't know if you've got any influence in government, you guys, over there. Perhaps they can do something about it, and because we've already got policy on it. But Lord Mayor, I'm certainly supporting this notice of motion.
Thank you. Well, if there's nobody else to speak, we go straight to the vote. Oh, yes, I forgot.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just replied to some of the comments. I was trying to be a little conservative with my motion in what we have achieved this evening. I would love to abolish council tax. I'd love to have a lovely discussion on site value rating this evening, but I thought it was a little late for that. So I tried to make something that was practical and deliverable. Because if this government is about us having accountability, give us the money and we will be accountable. There's no good tying our hands behind our backs and taking our funds away from us. In regard to business rates and PBSAs, I couldn't agree more. I put a motion before this council, before Councillor Johnson was here, and unanimous support in regard to changing PBSAs into business rates and away from the council tax regime. So we are all of one voice on those matters. I think there is, as I say, you know, we've got council tax. How many years have we been waiting for a revaluation of council taxes? We're still working on rental values in 1992 to work out the council tax value. I'm surprised they got Abacus in the office to work it out. They've moved on.
You know, we have to do something about council tax. This is one step. I support Councillor Pierce, and I quite happy to support the Labour Party policy on this. We need to move forward, but a step at a time. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Can I now have the relevant information that we have to vote for? So, all those in favour of
29 in favour of that.
please, against,
2 against.
abstentions?
So that has been carried.
Now it is a motion now by Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Can we have a seconder before you call?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Reserve the right to speak. Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't supposed to read out the full motion recommendations that all members have read and understood them, but just to let the members know that I have amended the wording slightly and then by the services, so probably everyone knows that I'll just set it out. So items 2, 3, 4 and 5 of the gold notes are amended to state that the action points rests with Exeter City Council, such that Exeter City Council requests action from other bodies such as South West Water, etc. So hopefully that's clear. Lovely, well, I'm not yet young. I'm pretty young, so young woman is new stuff. I think in terms of this motion, obviously we all have our different interests, our different work, our different roles, our different lifestyles, but we, I'm sure, are all united in our love of the fantastic asset that the river is to Exeter, what it gives to all residents of Exeter, way back before 1642. And to wildlife as well. However, there is sadly much work to do, because here is the unfortunate and uncomfortable state of the matter. You'll be delighted to know that the ex-catchment area has 77 sewage pumping stations, taking away wastewater for homes and businesses. It has both separate foul or surface water and combined foul and surface water networks. When there is severe rainfall, storm overflows of both heights acts as pressure inbuilt pressure relief valves in a delightful fashion, allowing flows to be discharged into rivers and seas. Storm overflows are fully permitted by the Environmental Council. There were 299 overflows in the catchment area. I suppose say catchment area. Okay. There are 167 event duration monitors installed to monitor spill frequency. Southwest Water's Level 2 Draft Drainage and Wastewater Management Plan for the X 2020 to 2025 is a cracking read. I can recommend it for bedtime reading. What it lacks in plot and character development, it makes up for in grisly, horrid detail about the numbers of spills and overflows, but not the volume of raw or treated sewage discharged into the waterways. This report gives a number of pollution events, as they call them, but no details on the impact on wildlife. In addition to this, agricultural runoff, badly managed septic tanks, road runoff, and misconnected domestic drains will impact adversely on the health of our rivers in general and the Ex specifically. There's very little data published by Southwest Water on biological monitoring of the health of the Ex. I'm talking about nutrients, pollution, etc. An Exeter City Council report on naturalising Exeter's rivers, which was produced in October 2021, focused on the Northbrook stream, which flows directly into the Ex. A baseline survey found that water quality in the stream is damaged by sewage entering the stream from misconnections, storm overflows, and from the landfill site. The Environment Agency agreed to monthly monitoring of the Northbrook from May 2022. This sort of survey is needed for the whole of the Ex catchment, a matter of urgency. Here are a few details of the not to find the point crap that the Ex is having to put up with. In 2021, at Dunsford Road, there were 44 discharges into the River Ex over 62 hours. At Countess Weir, there were 47 discharges into the River Ex for 123 hours. And top of the poops, at Lower North Street, there were 71 discharges into the higher leaks over 214 hours. We
we have no way of knowing the volume of sewage discharge in these horror events, because despite investigation by people like the Rivers Trust, we only know the number, times, and duration. There are also many overflows of treated and untreated sewage and domestic misconnections which are not measured or recorded at all. In addition, there is frequent, entirely unmeasured spillage into the river from agricultural chemicals. The Environment Act of 2021 made it a statutory obligation for the Environment Agency to monitor water quality up and downstream of sewer overflows and make annual reports on storm overflow discharges. South West Water has over 1,600 storm overflows to monitor, and at present they are concentrating on combined sewage overflows that spill more than 10 times a year. They've agreed to target to the Environment Agency to reduce spill frequency below this, not to some new target we know about, just to below this by, wait for it, there's going to be at least 2 members of this council who won't get retired by this date, 2045. This would appear to be a highly unambitious target. Meanwhile, the population of the X catchment in 2020 is 283,000 people. It's projected to grow to 373,000 people by 2050, an increase of 32%. Third, South West Water Level 2 draft plan X is a source for that. The catchment is also impacted by the influx of tourists in the summer. There's an increase of 37,000 people, 13% of the existing resident population. Planning applications need careful scrutiny, so the projected discharge of sewage is taken into account in all of these developments. Exeter is a beautiful cathedral city which deserves a clean, biodiversity, rich river, canal, and estuary. I know that there are many members here who are hugely passionate about the X, and that is absolutely fantastic. So I really hope that everyone can support this mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Those who wish to speak, please. Councillor.
Yes, I wanted to thank Elaine Ross for bringing this motion, which I do support. And I just want to bring to Ms. James' attention that there was a proposal from the House of Lords to the Environment Bill last year to place an individual water companies in England and Wales to make improvements to their sewerage systems and demonstrate progressive reductions in harm.
I can't quite hear, I'm so sorry.
Sorry?
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Caused by, sorry, I'll repeat that. There was a motion put by the House of Lords to amend the Environment Bill last year to make improvements to the sewerage systems for the water, putting a legal duty on water companies to make improvements to their sewerage systems and demonstrate progressive reductions in the harm caused by the discharge of untreated sewerage. But despite the horrendous impact of the disgusting practice which has been outlined over there and into the River Exe, what can we say? All the Conservative members of Devon voted against it, including Simon Judd, who is the Conservative member presently for Exe, and will, and now he's, as was said earlier by Councillor Pearce, now I'll bring off to Sidmouth, leaving the Exe, hopefully to a Labour MP next time, to vote in favour of making changes to the sewerage bill. So all the Conservatives in Devon and Cornwall voted against discharging. So they clearly welcome discharge of sewerage and crack onto our lovely rivers here. And I hope that members opposite on the Conservative sections will have words with their local MPs as well as relying on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for bringing this motion, which I will certainly be supporting this evening. In December, Exeter Labour for a Green New Deal, together with Exeter University Labour Society, hosted a public event on water in Exeter City Centre. It was called Our Water from City to Sea. Unfortunately, I don't think any of the Green Party members attended it. It's a shame, but it's an excellent event. What I would like to add is that nationally Labour have committed to clean water industry, preventing raw sewage from being dumped into British rivers and coastal waters, ensuring mandatory sewage outlet monitoring and compliance. So this is in tune with what the Labour Party wishes to do. Thank you, Edmund.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Is
Thank you very much. I just wanted to welcome the motion. Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. This is an issue that's really going to impact on the council because the Flood and Water Management Act of 2010 has a provision in its Schedule 3 which is going to really impact on our planning policies. So this schedule provides a provision for approval and adoption of drainage systems and an improving body, but most relevant to the council is he makes the right to connection for surface water runoff to public sewers conditional upon the drainage system being improved before any construction work can start. So we at Planning Committee had that as an issue that came up that Councillor Violet raised about yesterday, and so it's going to be then a responsibility of the local flood authorities. So that would be the county council that should take up these issues. So we really need to start engaging with this and considering the impact it's going to have on our planning system because it's only going to become much more complicated. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Rees, are you going to?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Very brief. Just to say that I'm very confident that we can unite as one with the shared vision for a clean and healthy and enriching biodiverse river, one that runs right through the heart of our city. I think supporting this motion together will send a very clear message to all residents of Exeter that we all care about the future of our river and we can turn around decline in our river's health. And I feel very confident that we will do that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, would you like just to sum up?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the messages of support. It seems like we have a huge amount of support in this chamber. This motion, which is fantastic, both in terms of the spirit of supporting the health of our river, which is so vital, but also in terms of the specific practical points that are stated there. So I really look forward, for example, to be able to have some of these people to scrutiny and be able to challenge them and see if we can get some answers and make some progress on this issue, so that we can celebrate and conserved and protected X in our city. I really believe that we can hope to make some progress to eliminating sewage on our rivers and seas. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now we go to the vote, please. Can I have those in favour of the motion, please?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor, that has been carried.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And that seems to be, now we have the agenda 17 on the agenda, which is a report to which the leader will be reporting when the senior officers leave.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This was an item that I asked to go on to this agenda. Members will be aware that I reported at the December meeting of the leaving of the President, Chief Executive and Director, and at that time we were put in arrangements for an interim as from the 1st of April. When asked the question for how long, I said, well, up to. And that's the clue, Lord Mayor. However, it became thoroughly important to me that we resolve this issue. We've got a lot of work to do going forward, and I've looked at the standing orders, taken advice, had discussions with the LGA representatives, Local Government Association, who are there to advise us in these circumstances as to how to go about it. And the first decision that I wanted to make was that we were going to, in the first instance, go internal. I shared that with my executive team, and they fully understood. I reported it to SMB on, I think, the morning of the 6th or 7th of February. I made an announcement at the start of the executive meeting, a verbal announcement, at 6 o'clock to say what I was doing, and that we were putting out an advert the following day, and an email was sent to all the staff in the council to advise them of the situation. So I'm trying to follow a process which was inclusive, and so please understand what's going on, Lord Mayor. But it was, why have I done this? Well, it dawned on me, I need to get on with it. I can't spend 4, 5, 6 months dealing with this. We've got another £2 million to sort out and a lot more. We've got the council to run. I need somebody as the chief executive working with me, the portfolio owners and members of the council to deliver what we have to deliver for this city. It's a changing time, a changing narrative, and that's what I wanted to do. So I sought advice, and I've come up with these. Although it says recommendations, if it's not recommendations in the suit, it recommends that you know that I'm reporting this to you because I've been advised by the monitoring office that we could have just gone on and done it. Could have just done it. Done the interviews, reported to the executive, reported to the council meeting, bish, bosh, and bash. I said, no, I want to be transparent about this. I said to people, I would let you know what the process is. This indeed is the process. So if you go down on point 2, which I'm asking you to note, I'll certainly take any questions. I briefed the executive on the 7th. Internal admin went out the following day, closing date on the 28th. We will, in accordance with our standing orders and legislation, have a balanced committee. I put in the selection date for the 7th of March. That committee, I've got some other people coming involved, all in accordance. We'll meet and we will have the recommendations the following day. I will chair that selection committee. We will report it back to executive, and also because the executive members have to agree that decision, so the committee deals with it, the executive, not a meeting executive, members of the executive have to agree. Okay? So then I bring that decision to an extraordinary council meeting on the 13th of March. So I'm not going to solo on all of this. I'm going to drive it. So we'll have a selection committee in accordance with the Constitution and the legislation. It will be a balanced committee. And we will make a selection internally if we feel that is appropriate. And if that is appropriate, we will bring that back to the executive members. And then I'll bring it back to a full council meeting. Now, in my view, we'll be up, running, and ready to go. Now, there is talk is April the 1st, the best day to do anything. All right? But, you know, council finances can't get any worse. So I'm going to go with April the 1st if we can. So up to is what I'm saying. So that is the process. I'm explaining all the adverts gone out. People are invited to apply internally. We will deal with that, and then we will do it in that way. So, Lord Mayor, for all those reasons, I'm reporting that to Council to let you know that is the process. I've discussed with the LGA, discussed with the HR within the Council, taking advice, and that's what we would like to do, or intending to do. And I'm taking that if everybody in this room starts screaming at me, that's not what we want you to do still. I've got to listen to that, wouldn't I? I've got to take that on board. But I'd like to think people will share with me that we need to get on with this, appoint the chief executive, to get on getting this council managed well, working and running forward, and that's what I intend to do, Lord Mayor. And so therefore I'm asking the council to note the actions that I put in this paper.
You can ask questions, but I would be careful how you ask them. The camera is there, and I think those who wish to ask questions, you have to be careful. Councillor, yes, you can ask.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Leader, for this voted report. Can I just have clarification on the third bullet point, which is for a balanced selection committee? Is that politically balanced? What do you exactly mean by balanced? I'll take the questions at the end.
Yes. Is there any? No, no, please, Councillor.
Thank you very much. I'm just quickly referencing some notes I know I can say, just hang on a second. Okay, so at the meeting in December, you spoke about the local government association involved in undertaking a review of the senior management board.
Right.
So I'd like to know about the status of that review, and will it come forward as fully costed proposals and recommendations for any changes that are to be made, and how that will relate to the role of head of paid service.
Okay.
So I think you can answer that.
I can deal with those simply. I think I'm right now in the monitoring officer. Is it the Local Government Act of 1972? And also is it the Local Government Act and Council for Housing Act of 1989? I do listen. Which makes it clear about balanced, politically balanced committees. And that's what we will do. That's what we do. No reason to change any of it, okay? So it'll be politically balanced, right? I'm not sure what, I know you would have might have thought gender balance or whatever. That's what the balance committee means in the terms of all of this. So rest assured that in accordance with that, people will be involved. With regard to an SMB restructuring, it is part, and the report says it, that we have to restructure. Okay. I told you, we've still got 2 million and a bit more next year. And you talked about the year after that, and the year after that. It never ends. It never ends. It could end. It could end with the appropriate thing. It could end, or it could be a bit different. And what we intend to do, what I'm not going to do, is give commitments or assurances that this is how we will determine that process at this stage. I need to get, or I will explain it, I need to get in place a head of paid service. One of the first jobs I need to do, give them a chance to settle in, first thing I need to do is to start having those discussions over how we are looking to restructure SMB and the council at that senior management level. Things are changing, guys. Things are changing on how we're going to do stuff. It's obvious we're going to have to change. It's going to look different. And so we need to sit down. I need to sit down with the head of paid service, whose responsibility it is, who will bring proposals to me, and then I will advise you of what is happening in relation to that. We never ever sit down and operate that by committee, the structure. We don't do that. We don't do that. And we're not going to start doing that now. If there are appointments to be made within all that, you won't be asking me again what balanced committee means, Councillor, because you'll know what it means then. We will do everything in order of receiving the proper advice. Why do I want to get on and escalate it or get on with it? The main reason is, as I told you in December there, I've been involved in my working career dealing with many reorganisations, mainly on the other side. understanding the problems that people have in these positions. And the last thing I've always noticed is the anxiety and the concern over what is going to happen. So what I want to do, Lord Mayor, is to settle it in a timely way, in an orderly fashion, so everybody knows. The Chief Executive and SNB will be the leaders of the council taking this council forward. We need them in those positions at the appropriate time. I need them fully on board with what we're trying to do here as a council, and I don't want the sword of Damocles hanging over anybody's head. I think that's fair. And as an ex-trade union official now, that's what I expect the management to be telling me, and that's what I would argue for. So if I've argued for it for 35 years, I'm going to make sure it happens with them. So that's what we want to do with the structure at the appropriate times. Thank you.
Thank you. I recommend that we remove the recommendation. Can I have a second?
Well, I'm asking the council to note it from there. I'll move that note.
You've moved that, so, all right, fine. Now, for those in favour of the amendment.
You don't need to.
Oh, it's noted. Sorry. It is a long night. Yes, thank you, Lord. Thank you very much. Can I call you to please stay and join me in a drink up in the parlour? Tonight we do have a drink, so thank you for being patient, but if you are not being patient.